Chapter 318. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. The Imperial Palace. The moon was above the branches. The Crown Prince consort sat on the floor that gave off a faint woody fragrance. In front of her was a short long table with a chessboard on it. The Crown Prince consort did not like crowds. The Eastern Palace was usually very quiet and would only be noisy when Qin Chuyu was present. However, Qin Chuyu had moved to the Emperor's Pure Flowers Palace these days. The Eastern Palace was as quiet as water again. The palace servants stood by the Crown Prince consort's side. They looked down and did not make a sound. Suddenly, with a clap, a chess piece landed on the chessboard. The Crown Prince consort smiled in relief. "It's done." Only then did the palace servants dare to look at her. The personal female official asked with a smile, "Crown Prince consort, what is done?" The Crown Prince consort smiled. "I finally solved this chess game." "Which game did you solve?" The Crown Prince strode into the room. The female official and the palace servants all bowed. "Your Highness the Crown Prince." The Crown Prince consort also wanted to stand and bow, but the Crown Prince quickly walked up and stopped her. The Crown Prince held her hand and sat down next to her. He looked at the chessboard on the table and said, "You played again?" "I had nothing to do, so I played casually," the Crown Prince consort said. The Crown Prince said with a smile, "We see that you play every day. Do you like playing chess that much? You spend more time looking at the chessboard than you do with us." The Crown Prince consort said warmly, "Crown Prince is joking." "We are not joking. We are really jealous." Although the Crown Prince said this, his gaze and actions towards the Crown Prince consort were full of affection. He held her hand tightly and asked, "You still have not answered our question. What game did you solve?" The Crown Prince really did not have much interest in playing chess, but if it was related to the Crown Prince consort, then he would be very attentive. The Crown Prince consort used her other hand that was not held by him to point to the chessboard and said, "It's this, the Kuan game." The Crown Prince stilled. "Kuan game? Which Kuan game? Sir Meng's Kuan game?" In the chess world, it seemed that only Mr. Meng's game could be called a Kuan game. No matter how much the Crown Prince disliked playing chess, he had heard of old Mr. Meng's reputation. He was undoubtedly the chess sage of the Six Nations. He had set up countless chess games in his life, of which the 8 chess games were the most famous. Very few could solve them, but the Crown Princess had solved the first game at the age of 13. In the next few years, she solved 5 more rounds. This kind of achievement was rare even in the Six Nations, especially when she was so young. The chess expert of Jin Nation was already over 40 years old and had solved 6 games. However, he still couldn't solve the last 2 games, Qian and Kuan. The Crown Prince held her hand tightly in excitement and looked into her beautiful eyes. "Linlang, you've done something that no woman in the world has ever done. No, you've done something that no one else in the world has ever done. Even men can't compare to you." The Crown Princess lowered her head and smiled shyly. "While I was injured, I concentrated on studying chess in the Eastern Palace. Speaking of which, it was a blessing in disguise." The Crown Prince said seriously, "Where? Other people wouldn't be able to figure it out even if they studied it for a lifetime. You've solved it in just a few months?" "No, this is such a pleasant surprise. I have to report it to Imperial Father." The Crown Prince did as he said. He really went to find the Emperor immediately. The Emperor was diligent. He ate and slept all day and night. It was already late at night, but he was still reviewing memorials in the Imperial study. His expression didn't change much when he saw the Crown Prince. He just pinched his tired forehead and asked, "Why are you here so late?" There was a small couch for the Emperor to rest on behind the screen. At this moment, there was an even snoring sound. Apparently, Qin Chuyu was tired from playing in the Imperial study and fell asleep on the couch. The Crown Prince looked away and asked, "Imperial Father, do you want me to bring little Qi back?" I don't want to disturb you. That little snoring was too rhythmic. The Emperor said, No need. Tell me, what is it? It's like this. Lin Lang solved old Mr. Meng's chess game just now. The Crown Prince couldn't hide his pride. It was the Kuan game. The Emperor's hand paused as he read the memorials. Surprise flashed across his eyes. Really? Really? If Imperial Father doesn't believe me, you can call Lin Lang here. The Crown Prince patted his head with a smile. I left in a hurry and forgot to bring the chessboard. Guards, go to the Eastern Palace and bring the Crown Princess's chessboard here. Yes. A eunuch outside the Imperial study answered. The eunuch quickly brought the chessboard and presented it to the Emperor with both hands. The Emperor's chess skills were much better than the Crown Prince's. He looked at the game on the chessboard and immediately understood the mystery. He couldn't hide the amazement in his eyes. So that's how it was solved. Why didn't I think of it? The Crown Prince smiled with pride. Imperial Father, you are busy every day and don't have much time to play chess. Lin Lang has been recuperating in the Eastern Palace these days. When she has time, she carefully studied chess. These words were not only to excuse the Emperor, but also to praise Wen Linlong's excellence. She didn't solve the game before because she didn't have time. Now that she had time, she solved the Kuan game in just 1 or 2 months. Who else in the world was so smart? Perhaps his cousin who had passed away was one. His cousin solved Elder Meng's first game when he was 10 years old. Unfortunately, he died young. However, even if he was alive, he might not be able to do better than Lin Lang. Lin Lang had already solved the Kuan game. Not to mention that Lin Lang was a woman. There was no woman more outstanding than Lin Lang in the world. The Emperor nodded in satisfaction. He had some reservations about this daughter-in-law in the past. After all, she was once engaged to Xiao Heng. However, the Crown Prince insisted on marrying her. Moreover, she was indeed very talented and Empress Xiao liked her very much. Thus, the Emperor agreed to this marriage. In the years after they got married, the Crown Prince improved rapidly. He grew from a reckless and ignorant boy to a reserved and steady man. The Crown Princess played a big part in this. Yes. The Emperor couldn't hide his praise. The Crown Princess did well. Imperial Father, she is the first person in the 6 countries, right? The Crown Prince asked tentatively. The Emperor nodded with a smile. Of course. Other than Elder Meng, your wife is the first person to solve the Kuan game. I will write a letter to each country to announce this great news. The Crown Prince cupped his hands and smiled. This son congratulates Imperial Father. There was no national boundary in learning and chess. This was not only the Crown Princess's glory, but also the entire Zhao nation's glory. The Emperor was overjoyed. I will think about how to reward you. You are basking in her glory again. The Crown Prince straightened his back and said, This son has good taste and found a wife who brings good fortune to my husband. The Emperor laughed. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. The memorial he received just now was related to the Eastern Palace, urging the Crown Prince to take in more concubines and expand the imperial family's bloodline. However, the Crown Princess suddenly made him proud, so the Emperor temporarily suppressed this memorial. The next day, after Gu Jiao sent little Jing Kong to the directorate, she went directly to the medical center. When she passed by the female school, she heard about the Crown Princess solving the chess game. Did you hear? The Crown Princess solved Elder Meng's game? Didn't the Crown Princess solve it long ago? Not the 6th game, but the 7th game of the Kuan game. Ha! She even solved the Kuan game? Didn't they say that no one can solve the 2 games of heaven and earth? That's why the Crown Princess isn't human at all. She's an immortal. Of course, there were also those who were still brooding over the Crown Princess's broken bridge accident on the first day of the new year. Why are you so happy that she solved it? It's as if you solved the chess game. Moreover, how do you know if she really solved it or not? How can this kind of thing be faked? Just wait and see. It will be posted on the imperial list soon. Gu Jiao's expression was indifferent as she walked past the girls who were quarreling. She had no feelings for the crown princess and had no interest in her glory and achievements. She had recently obtained some saltpeter and wanted to try making something. She had never done it before, so she was a little unfamiliar with it. She poured out the saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal and placed them on the ground. She wanted to make gunpowder. She needed weapons to make up for her lack of martial strength. Before she recovered the strength of her previous life, she really needed something powerful. If she had gunpowder last time when the assassination happened on the cliff, she wouldn't have been forced to almost fall off the cliff. Gunpowder was one of the 4 great inventions of ancient times, but gunpowder didn't seem to have appeared in this fictional dynasty. With the raw materials she could currently find, she could only make black gunpowder. It wasn't as effective as yellow gunpowder and it wasn't a powerful explosive, but it was still much more powerful than silver needles and darts. Gu Jiao had a rough idea of the raw materials, but she wasn't sure about the ratio. The slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. A small change in the dosage could cause the black gunpowder's power to greatly decrease. So she had to be patient and try. The charcoal didn't have any smell and the sulfur was tolerable. But this saltpeter. The second boss used his sleeve to cover his nose as he came to Gu Jiao's small courtyard. Little Gu what is this? Saltpeter. Gu Jiao said. Seeing that the second boss didn't seem to understand, she changed her words. It's soil with bird droppings. The second boss. The corner of the second boss's mouth twitched. What do you want to do with bird droppings? Gu Jiao said, boil. The corner of the second boss's mouth twitched again. He looked at Gu Jiao with an indescribable expression. It's not boiling, right? Boiling in a pot. Gu Jiao nodded. It has to be boiled to get the saltpeter. After filtration, it will be made into saltpeter. You came at the right time. Help me boil it. The second boss's whole body felt unwell. You're a young girl. You can boil anything, but you have to boil bird droppings. Saltpeter is clean. Gu Jiao said. I don't care, I don't want to boil bird droppings. After a quarter of an hour, the second boss miserably held a stick and began to boil bird droppings as if there was nothing left to live for. After boiling, the white foam was scooped out and filtered with gauze. Then, it was wrapped and buried in the ashes. The weather was hot, and the water evaporated very quickly. In the afternoon, a few heavy bags of saltpeter were ready. The saltpeter made by Gu Jiao was sparkling and translucent, with a faint white color. Gu Jiao was very satisfied. She looked at the second boss, whose face was full of disgust, and said, Saltpeter is actually a very good medicinal material. The second boss, don't tell me you gave it to me before. Gu Jiao nodded seriously. Last time you had indigestion, I gave you a bag of white powder. Did you forget? So he ate bird droppings at that time? Let him die on the spot. The second boss was deeply shocked. He was carried back to his room by Xiao Sanzi to rest. Gu Jiao let the maid clean up the scene. According to the ratio of 50% saltpeter, 30% sulfur, and 20% charcoal, she mixed a black powder. Last time, little Dudu came in handy. She filled it with water and wrapped it in cloth to make a simple airbag. She put the airbag on her body and put on a helmet. After igniting it, she found that the blasting effect was not ideal. Gu Jiao raised the ratio of saltpeter and lowered the ratio of sulfur. Then, she was blown away. Marquis Xian Ping rarely passed by here today, so he wanted to see his daughter-in-law. The main reason was that last time he went to see his daughter-in-law in Bisui Alley, he met little Jing Kong. He was so abused that he did not even remember what he was doing. Today he was smart. He did not go to Bisui Alley, but went directly to the medical center. This way, he would not let the little monk disturb him. He walked through the hall and came to Gu Jiao's courtyard. But what did he see? On a lush branch, Gu Jiao was tied up by a pile of cloth strips. She was wrapped like a small silkworm cocoon. She was hanging on a branch, making creaking sounds. Only her small head was exposed, and her expression was cold. Marquis Xian Ping could not help but laugh. Some people did not change their nature. They were obviously here to win people over, and they even thought of their lines on the way here. But when they saw Gu Jiao's miserable and cold appearance, they wanted to bully her again. Marquis Xian Ping raised his head and smiled. "Little girl, do you want to come down? Call me father, and I'll put you down." Gu Jiao ignored him. She turned around and turned the back of her head to him. But she used too much strength and turned too big, so she turned back to her original position. Marquis Xian Ping looked at that cold little face and laughed until his body was shaking. If someone else laughed like this, they would have been greasy enough to make people want to beat them up. But Marquis Xian Ping was born handsome, and his smile was still pleasing to the eye. Gu Jiao looked at his handsome face and hesitated for a moment. Her expression softened slightly, and she asked coldly, "What do you want me to call you?" Marquis Xian Ping raised his eyebrows. "Father." Gu Jiao nodded. "Yes." Marquis Xian Ping. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111935035. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 319. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Marquis Xian Ping was hurt again. Were all kids these days so good at making people angry? Marquis Xian Ping clutched his chest. He was the Marquis of Xian Ping who could choke people to death without paying for it. He was invincible in the capital, so why was he being choked one after another here? Marquis Xian Ping couldn't remember what he was here for. He asked Chong Jing to put him down and left with a sad expression. It was time to end the shift in Hanlin Academy. Attendant Yang had recently asked for leave. He didn't have much work to do and there weren't many people who could share his workload. Among them, Xiao Lulang and Prince and were mainly responsible for teaching the scholars. Originally, Attendant Yang was responsible for mathematics and agriculture. Scholar Han asked them to choose one subject each. Princeton chose mathematics because he wasn't born and raised in the countryside and wasn't as experienced as Xiao Lulang in farming. Xiao Lulang didn't say anything and happily took over the agriculture class. He didn't have much experience in farming. When he was in the countryside, Gu Jiao had a few acres of land. Unfortunately, he and Gu Jiao didn't know how to farm and it was later abandoned. He wasn't as experienced in farming as little Jing Kong. At least little Jing Kong watered the vegetable garden every day and caught insects. Occasionally, he would follow Gu Jiao to weed. In order to teach this class well, Xiao Lulang had been learning how to farm recently. After the shift, he planned to go home and farm. Ning Xuan quietly came over and winked. "Drinking, do you want to go?" "No." Xiao Lulang refused without hesitation. After saying that, he realized something was wrong and looked at him strangely. "Why are you going to drink too?" In his impression, Ning Xuan wasn't the kind of person who indulged in wine and women. Ning Xuan sighed. "Isn't it because I want to enter the inner circle? Do you think I want to go? You've been giving lectures to the Crown Prince recently, and Attendant Yang has taken leave to stay at home. I don't think everyone is so blatantly targeting you anymore. Do you want to take this opportunity to win over a few people?" Xiao Lulang paused. "No, I'm going back to farm." Ning Xuan, Xiao Lulang left the Hanlin Academy. It wasn't too far from the Hanlin Academy to the Xuanwu Avenue. It only took half an hour to walk by the shortcut. After passing through the Imperial College, one would arrive at the vicinity of the Jadewater Alley. When he arrived at the Imperial College, he thought of something. After some hesitation, he decided to go to Minghui Hall. Outside the Radiant Hall, he unexpectedly met a familiar face, Zhang Sai. Zhang Sai had once been the substitute chancellor, and Xiao Lulang had suffered a lot from Zhang Sai when he was studying at the Imperial College. Now, the old chancellor had put them back on for him. Zhang Sai stood at the door as punishment. It was as embarrassing as it could get. Zhang Sai was a fourth-rank official. His rank was higher than Xiao Liulong's. Xiao Lulang saluted him with cupped hands and then went in. Zhang Sai looked at Xiao Lulang entering the Radiant Hall that he couldn't enter so easily. He felt so wronged that he was about to cry. "Why are you here today?" The old chancellor was reading papers. Seeing him come over, he put down his pen. "Sit down." Xiao Lulang sat down on the cushion opposite the old chancellor. "I'm here today to ask you about someone." "Oh, who do you want to ask about?" the old chancellor asked. "Someone from the palace," Xiao Lulang said. The old chancellor's expression became serious. Why do you suddenly want to ask about someone from the palace?" Xiao Lulang hesitated for a moment and said, "The person who poisoned me back then might not be Empress Dowager Zhuang." The old chancellor's eyes lit up. He was so excited that he almost stood up from the table. "I knew it wasn't her." Xiao Lulang gave him an incomparably weird look. The old chancellor coughed lightly and sat down. He took a sip of tea and said, "What I mean is, if she really wanted to kill you, she had countless chances to do so this year." Xiao Lulang said, "She doesn't remember me." The old chancellor. Why is it so hard to refute? Cough, cough. Anyway, it doesn't seem like her. If she wants to kill someone, why would she leave any traces behind? He would never admit that he had any selfish motives. He and Zhuang Jins had a pure monarch and subject relationship. "Did you remember something?" The old chancellor went back to the topic. Xiao Lulang nodded. He didn't say that he was stimulated by an unspeakable dream. "I suddenly remembered that there was a mole on that person's left wrist." "A mole on the left wrist?" The old chancellor stroked his beard thoughtfully. "I can still recall a mole on the face, but the wrist. Back then, he was highly regarded by the late emperor and often went in and out of Pure Flower's palace. Occasionally, he would bump into the concubines and palace maids. However, he wasn't the emperor after all and couldn't lift up the sleeves of the concubines or palace maids to look at their wrists. He originally wanted to say that he could ask his grand aunt, but when he was about to say it, he remembered that Zhuang Jins had lost a lot of memories. Besides, even if she didn't lose her memories, she wouldn't pay attention to whether or not someone had a mole on their wrist as the Empress Dowager. "Was it a eunuch or a woman?" the old chancellor asked. "A woman," Xiao Lulang said. It was a woman's voice, but he couldn't recall whose voice it was. He didn't even have an impression of whether it was old or young, crisp or soft. The only thing that was deeply engraved in his mind was that mole on the left wrist. A palace maid from more than 10 years ago. The old chancellor sank into deep thought. After a while, he grabbed his collar with a headache. I know a person who knows the people in the palace very well. She's from the Shang Palace Bureau and often makes clothes for people. You can go and find her." Xiao Lulang looked at him with a puzzled face. "Then your expression is—" this." The old chancellor wanted to say something but stopped. "Forget it, I'll go home with you. You can take the token and find her. I don't know if she still recognizes it after so many years." The old chancellor and Xiao Lulang left Minghui Hall. Coincidentally, the elementary school of the Imperial College was also about to end. The two waited for little Jing Kong to go home together. Little Jing Kong curled his lips. "Why did brother-in-law come today? Why didn't you come from Jiaojiao?" Xiao Lulang was annoyed and amused at the same time. "Someone came to pick you up and you still don't like it?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said, "If you buy me candied haws, I won't dislike you." Xiao Lu Lang. You can continue to dislike me. Little Jing Kong. The two of them arrived home. Gu Jiao hadn't come back yet. Xiao Lu Lang narrowed his eyes, and his eyes fell on little Jing Kong, who was sitting on the threshold eating a peach cake. Do you want to go to the palace to see your grand aunt? He was a foreign minister, so it was easy to arouse suspicion if he directly went to the palace to visit Empress Dowager Zhuang. However, it was much easier if he used the identity of little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong didn't expect that he would be used as a tool one day. He raised his face that was covered in snacks and nodded with the same serious expression as Gu Jiao's. Yes. Xiao Lu Lang smiled. Good boy. The aunt that Xiao Lu Lang wanted to see was surnamed Zhang. She was now old enough to be a nanny and was in charge of the Department of Palace Affairs. Before leaving, the old chancellor repeatedly told him, "You, ask Empress Dowager first. If Empress Dowager doesn't remember you, then go to see her." The implication was that unless it was absolutely necessary, he shouldn't disturb this old friend. Xiao Lu Lang looked at him strangely. Is it Master's wife? What Master's wife? How could it be? The old chancellor almost jumped out of anger. Don't talk nonsense. But he and Manager Zhang did indeed have a little secret that couldn't be revealed to others. He hoped that she had already forgotten about that matter. Xiao Lu Lang took little Jing Kong and got on the carriage to the palace. Little Jing Kong was so excited that his little head shook, which was exactly the same as Gu Jiao's happy look. People who had lived together for a long time would gradually imprint each other's expressions and habits, as if they were originally a family. The carriage continued to move forward. When it passed by the government office, the street was suddenly congested. What happened? Lu Quan craned his neck and asked. A passing directorate supervisor said, "You don't know yet. Someone solved old Master Meng's chess game." Ordinary people didn't know much about it, but almost all scholars had heard of old Master Meng's chess game. There were 8 chess games that shocked the 6 countries and the world. Among the 8 games, the Qian and Kuan games were the most difficult to solve. The Qian game was known as the Heaven game and was unsolvable. Before today, the Kuan game was also unsolvable. But the Crown Princess did it. She was the first person to solve the Kuan game in the 6 countries, which caused a great sensation in the academic and chess world. Everyone gathered here because the imperial notice commending the Crown Princess came out. The Zhao Kingdom was a lower kingdom, but it solved a chess game that even the 3 upper kingdoms couldn't solve. The Crown Princess really made the Zhao Kingdom proud. His Majesty has written a letter to the Yan Kingdom, right? Will old Master Meng be shocked when he gets the news? Maybe he will personally guide the Crown Princess in chess. The scholar said with joy, but he didn't notice that Xiao Lu Lang had put down the curtain. In the crowd in front, an old beggar saw the contents of the imperial notice and shook his head. No. Old man, what's wrong? Someone asked. The old beggar said, "It said that it was solved in the middle of the night." The scholar said, "Yes, what's wrong?" The old beggar waved his hand. "Then she's not the first person to solve the Kuan game." The scholar frowned. "Hey, you old man. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. How is the Crown Princess not the first person to solve the Kuan game? If the Crown Princess isn't, who is?" The old beggar said seriously, "The one in the evening is." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111932102. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com Chapter 320. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Forget it. Why are you arguing with an old beggar? He looks like a lunatic. This is not a good place to be. Another young man pulled the scholar's sleeve and pointed at his own head, indicating that the scholar should not argue with the old beggar. On the surface, it seemed that the scholar was trying to stop the fight, but in fact, he was mocking the old beggar. What does a beggar on the street know? Does he know Go? Does he know what the 6 kingdoms and the 8 great chess games are? Does he understand the difficulty of the Kuan game? He is nothing. I'm not. The old beggar did not care how others looked at him. He kept repeating these words. Fortunately, most of the onlookers here were scholars. Apart from ridiculing the old beggar with words, they didn't do anything excessive like pushing or shoving the old beggar. The old beggar left while mumbling. Everyone looked at the way he was mumbling, and they were even more certain that he was a lunatic. Xiao Lulang did not like to join in the fun. After waiting for a while and seeing that there was no sign of the road ahead, he asked Lu Quan to change the route. In summer, days were long and nights were short. When they arrived at the Imperial Palace, the sky was still bright. The Imperial Palace guard stopped the carriage and asked, "Who are you?" "Xiao Lulang, Hanlin Xiushu." Xiao Lulang thought about asking him to go to Rancho Palace to pass the message. However, he saw little Jing Kong take out a token from his pocket and said, "Here. Can we go in now?" The Imperial Palace guard's expressions did not change much when they heard the words Hanlin Xiushu. However, when they saw the token, they immediately changed their attitude and said respectfully, "Yes, of course." The Imperial Palace guards let them go and the carriage entered the Imperial Palace. Xiao Lulang looked at little Jing Kong in surprise and asked, "Where did you get the token?" Little Jing Kong calmly put away the token and said, "My great-aunt gave it to me." "Don't you have it?" Xiao Lulang. "Of course not." Little Jing Kong counted with his fingers and said, "Jiao Jiao has one too. Brother Xiaoshun and Brother Yen also have one." So he was the only one who didn't. A bolt from the blue. How would little Jing Kong know that the bad brother-in-law did not have the token given by his great-aunt? The carriage was not allowed to enter the harem, so it stopped near the throne room. Little Jing Kong jumped off the carriage and ran towards the harem. The border between the inner palace and the outer palace was also guarded by imperial bodyguards, but both of them knew little Jing Kong. They knew that he was not only a guest of the 7th prince, but also a guest of Rancho Palace, so they let him in without worry. Xiao Lulang was in a miserable state. Again he was stopped. Little Jing Kong was relieved and ran to Rancho Palace. Empress Dowager Zhuang asked him who sent him there. He said that it was his bad brother-in-law, so Eunuch Qin hurried over to get him. When Eunuch Qin saw Xiao Lulang for the first time, he was frightened by Xiao Liulong's appearance and almost thought that he had seen a ghost. Later he thought that it was impossible. If it was really Xiao Hang who had passed away, how could he have saved the Empress Dowager? Xiao Lulang and Eunuch Qin went to Rancho Palace. Empress Dowager Zhuang was preparing to eat. When she saw little Jing Kong, she asked the kitchen to prepare vegetables. Empress Dowager Zhuang was not surprised by little Jing Kong's sudden visit. However, she was shocked when she found out that little Jing Kong was sent by Xiao Lulang. Of course, she did not show it on her face. The kitchen was very quick. After a while, several delicate and delicious vegetables were served. Eunuch Qin moved a chair over. Little Jing Kong was small. In the countryside, such a small child would not eat at the table. He would be given a bowl and eat in the kitchen with the women. However, Gu Jiao did not have the habit of not eating at the table. Gu Jiao personally made little Jing Kong an exclusive chair. It was higher than ordinary chairs and there was a board in front of it to prevent him from falling. Xiao Lulang did not expect Rancho Palace to have such a chair. Obviously, it was not made by Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang glanced at Empress Dowager Zhuang and did not speak. The three of them began to eat. Empress Dowager Zhuang removed the servants who served the dishes. Xiao Lulang did not know that there were special Hanlin officials who recorded the emperor's daily life until he entered the Hanlin Academy. The emperor's words and deeds, his meals, etiquette, and rules would all be recorded. The Empress Dowager and the Empress would also be recorded. These were all left in the palace's history book for future generations to review. Empress Dowager Zhuang's removal of the servants seemed to be a small matter, but in fact, it would be recorded. She would not completely ignore it. Otherwise, she would have been free to do whatever she wanted. She cared, but she still did it. However, she did not explain it verbally. If he did not become a Hanlin official, who knew what she did for them? For them. Or for little Jing Kong? Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes. Forget it. Why should he care about this? He was not here to share the happiness of family with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Little Jing Kong was. He was here for business. Ranshou Palace had been expanded twice. It was even bigger than the Crown Prince's East Palace. Little Jing Kong began his exploration after eating. Wow! What a tall swing! As soon as little Jing Kong entered the side hall, he saw a super big swing that was 3 times taller than the one in the East Palace. When he swung, he wished he could see the whole palace. I want to play! I want to play! He was eager to try. Eunuch Qin called 2 palace masters to play with little Jing Kong on the swing. Xiao Lulang came to Ranshou Palace when he was a child. He was poisoned in the courtyard of this side hall. However, after so many years, even if he revisited the old place, it would not trigger any more memories. However, he was sure of one thing. There was absolutely no such thing as a swing in Ranshou Palace in the past. Because Empress Dowager Zhuang did not like children. Xiao Lulang soon found that there were not only swings in Ranshou Palace. There were also a lot of wood waiting to be carved, jade for people to play with, and precious medicinal materials collected from all over the world. Gu Jiao and his 3 brothers all had their own things. However, Xiao Lulang did not have anything. Xiao Lulang said, don't care in his mind. However, a faint strange emotion unconsciously rose in his heart. He did not know what it was. In short, he did not feel good. Xiao Lulang tried hard to ignore the strange feeling in his heart. He turned to look for Eunuch Qin. However, he caught a glimpse of Empress Dowager Zhuang sitting on a rattan chair and drinking tea leisurely. Empress Dowager Zhuang was looking at little Jing Kong. Xiao Lulang sighed. As expected, not only did he not have a token, he did not have anything that belonged to him. He could not even get a glance from her. Forget it. He did not care. Eunuch Qin brought a plate of fresh fruits over. He smiled at Xiao Lulang and said, Xiao Lulang, I saw that you did not eat much just now. Is the food in Ranshou Palace not to your taste? Eunuch Qin had stayed in by Shui Alley before. Naturally, he knew how much Xiao Lulang ate. Xiao Lulang said as if nothing had happened, No, the food is very good. It's just that the weather is too hot. I can't eat much. Eunuch Qin said, This servant guessed that it would be like this. This is freshly cut honeydew. It has been iced. There is also sour plum soup. They are all appetizing. Xiao Lulang, eat something simple first. In a while, this servant will ask the kitchen to make some of your favorite dishes. No need. Xiao Lulang declined. I want. Little Jing Kong shouted in the air. The corner of Xiao Liulong's mouth twitched. He was flying so high, but he could still hear them talking so softly. Eunuch Qin smiled and looked at him. Good. What do you want to eat? This servant will ask someone to make it later. Little Jing Kong said anxiously, I can't remember now. I will come down and tell you later. Eunuch Qin smiled and agreed, Okay. Xiao Lulang inadvertently glanced at Empress Dowager Zhuang again. Empress Dowager Zhuang was still drinking tea with her head lowered. It seemed that she had not looked at him from beginning to end. Xiao Liulong's heart was blocked again. Did she not like him that much? Xiao Lulang took a deep breath and decided to get down to business first. Eunuch Qin, can I ask you about someone? Ah, go ahead. Do you know a palace maid or concubine with a mole on her wrist? Her left wrist. Eunuch Qin thought carefully and shook his head. I don't know and have never seen. He smiled and explained, I am a eunuch. If you ask a eunuch, I know a lot. But palace maids and concubines, I dare not keep staring at their hands. He did not ask Xiao Lulang why he wanted to ask about this. Xiao Lulang was not surprised by this answer. He didn't have much hope. Does the Empress Dowager know them? This servant will go and ask. Eunuch Qin did not say that he could ask the Empress Dowager. Since Xiao Lulang asked him, he naturally did not want to ask the Empress Dowager himself. As for whether he was embarrassed or for other reasons, it was unknown. After Eunuch Qin asked, he came to Xiao Lulang and said, the Empress Dowager has never paid attention to it. Then forget it. It's not a big deal. Xiao Lulang said calmly, that's right. Is Steward Zhang of the Shang Palace Bureau in the palace today? An old friend of hers asked me to give her something from outside the palace and let me personally hand it to her. Eunuch Qin called a young eunuch, go to the Shang Palace Bureau and ask if Steward Zhang is on duty. If she is, invite her to Ranshou Palace. Digression, today's condition is very bad. I won't stay up to write, although it's already 1 o'clock. I'll get up at 2 o'clock to write. Everyone, come back later to read. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642890532. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 321. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. The young eunuch slipped away and went to the Shang Palace Bureau. Not long after, he brought Manager Zhang over. Xiao Lulang was waiting for her outside of Ranshou Palace. Manager Zhang was an old mama in the palace. In Zhao country's imperial palace, there was a rule that palace maids could leave the palace when they were 25 years old. If they didn't leave, they could comb their hair and become ants. Manager Zhang was the latter. From palace maid to ants and then to a manager, she had given most of her life to the imperial palace. The eunuch who passed the message didn't say the specifics, so Manager Zhang thought it was the Empress Dowager summoning her. She came to the entrance of Ranshou Palace, and when she saw Xiao Lulang, she was shocked for a moment and then took a few steps back in fright. Because of her face, more than one person thought they saw a ghost. Manager Zhang was also old, so it was inevitable that she would be more scared. Xiao Lulang didn't take it to heart and said, "My surname is Lulang, written by Hanlin." Xiao Lulang? Not Xiao. Manager Zhang was about to say the name but suddenly remembered that she was lowly and wasn't qualified to say the name of Zhao Du's young marquis. She composed herself and wiped the cold sweat on her forehead. "Sorry, I mistook you for someone else." Xiao Lulang didn't care. He took out the token that the old chancellor gave him, an inkstone that was missing a piece. When Manager Zhang saw the inkstone, her expression changed again. "You." She wanted to say something but stopped. After a moment, she asked, "Did Chancellor Hua ask you to come find me?" Xiao Lulang nodded and handed the inkstone to her. Manager Zhang took the inkstone and seemed to remember something. Her gaze became complicated. "I didn't think that he would come find me at this time. Is he okay? I heard that he returned to the capital and became the Chancellor of the Imperial College." Xiao Lulang said to her, "He is fine. Manager Zhang, don't worry." Manager Zhang smiled bitterly. "What do I have to worry about? Even if he was exiled to a bitter and cold place, he would not die in a foreign land. Naturally, he would take good care of himself." Xiao Lulang felt that the relationship between the two wasn't that simple, but it wasn't good for him to pry into other people's privacy. Manager Zhang lowered his head and looked at the inkstone in his hand. He was both angry and amused. After so many years, he still kept this lousy thing. "I thought he threw it away long ago. Speaking of which, it wasn't anything valuable, so why bother keeping it? Since he let you come to me with this, it shows that he trusts you a lot. Speak, why are you looking for me?" "No, wait, why are you looking for me? He will never look for me again in this lifetime." Xiao Lulang couldn't help but sigh when he saw her face filled with so many twists and turns, but he didn't know how to comfort her. Tears flashed in Manager Zhang's eyes. She smiled and said nonchalantly, "I've made a fool of myself. Tell me, what is it?" Xiao Lulang did not beat around the bush and said bluntly, "I'm here to ask Manager Zhang about a person." "What person?" Manager Zhang asked. Xiao Lulang said honestly, "A person with a mole on her left wrist. She has been in the palace for more than 10 years. I don't know if she's a palace maid or an imperial concubine." It couldn't be Empress Xiao. Empress Xiao was his aunt and wouldn't harm him. Moreover, Empress Xiao often hugged him and he knew what her wrist was like. Manager Zhang frowned and fell into deep thought. "I don't have any impression, but I can help you find her. As long as she hasn't been let out of the palace in these years, I can help you find her." But Xiao Lulang understood. After all, it had been more than 10 years. Every year, there would be palace maids released from the palace. If she was one of them, then it would be like a stone sinking into the ocean. But very quickly, Xiao Lulang shook his head again. No, she shouldn't have been let out of the palace. Poisoning the legitimate son of Marquis Xianping was a serious crime. Once discovered, she would die without a doubt. If it was an imperial concubine, imperial concubines couldn't leave the palace. If it was a palace maid, she must have been ordered by someone. If she did such an important thing for her master, how could her master let her leave the palace? She would either be killed or kept by his side to continue working for him. But after he was poisoned, he didn't hear about any palace maid who died in vain. That person was still alive. She was still alive in the palace. Manager Zhang asked, "More than 10 years ago?" Xiao Lulang said, 14 years ago. Ah. Manager Zhang seemed to think of something. He took a deep look at Xiao Lulang and nodded. "Then you want to find the person who entered the palace 14 years ago. Okay, leave it to me." Manager Zhang took the inkstone and left. Xiao Lulang looked at her back gradually disappearing into the night. Somehow, he inexplicably felt that her back was a little staggered and lonely. It was late and the palace was about to close. Little Jing Kong said goodbye to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Little Jing Kong said seriously, "Great aunt, you can't secretly eat candy, drink sugar water, or eat fried shortbread." "I will tell Jiao Jiao." Empress Dowager Zhuang looked disgusted. I know. You talk too much. Hurry up and leave." Little Jing Kong put his little hands behind his back, tilted his head and raised his eyebrows. "Then don't miss me too much." Empress Dowager Zhuang said, "I will only miss you if I eat too much." Bam bam bam, so noisy. Xiao Lulang walked over slowly, took little Jing Kong's hand, and said goodbye to Empress Dowager Zhuang. He and Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't have much to talk about. They looked at each other and soon looked away. Look, she didn't even want to look at him. "Take the things," Empress Dowager Zhuang said expressionlessly. "Oh, I almost forgot." Little Jing Kong broke free from his bad brother-in-law's hand, ran over, picked up a brocade box on the table, and ran back. "Let's go." Xiao Lulang looked at the brocade box in his arms and then looked at himself, who was empty-handed, and felt 1,000 arrows in his heart. He glanced at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang lowered her eyes and turned her face away. He looked at the table where the brocade box was placed. There were a lot of dazzling boxes on it, but none of them belonged to him. He took a deep breath, pressed his chest, and went out with a dark face. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the two of them leaving and snorted. On the way home, little Jing Kong fell asleep in Xiao Liulong's arms. He also let go of the brocade box. Xiao Lulang held him with one hand and the brocade box with the other. He had an impulse to open the brocade box and take a look. He wanted to see what Empress Dowager Zhuang gave the little guy. Why did he have it and not him? What am I thinking? Xiao Lulang was ashamed of his childishness. He shook his head and suppressed the impulse to peek at the brocade box. He had forgotten that he was only 18 years old. He was a teenager who had yet to turn 20. He didn't need to be so mature or so calm. It was already late at night when they returned to Jadewater Alley. Madame Yao and Gu Yen had both gone to bed. Senior servant Fong and Yu Ye had also returned to the next room to rest. Gu Jiao was in the central room preparing the gunpowder. The ratio of the powder was almost decided, but powder alone wasn't enough. They still had to make it into a powerful weapon or concealed weapon. When she heard movement at the door, she put down what she was doing and walked out. "You're back." "Yes." Xiao Lulang nodded. Gu Jiao walked over and took little Jing Kong, who was sleeping soundly, and put him on the bed in the west room. "What is this?" Xiao Lulang looked at the pile of black things on the table and asked. Gu Jiao walked out, thought for a while, and said, "I don't know what it is." Black firecrackers? Xiao Lulang, what kind of name was that? Gu Jiao made the gunpowder into the size of a pellet and put it in a small improved bamboo tube. Phosphorus powder was added to the small bamboo tube. Phosphorus had a low ignition point, so it would spontaneously ignite when heated by friction. It would ignite the gunpowder in the bamboo tube and cause a small explosion. The explosion wasn't very powerful, but it was mainly used as a deterrent. However, there was also a hidden danger. What if the phosphorus powder spontaneously ignited without friction when the weather was too hot? Therefore, it still had to be improved. Gu Jiao said, "I've boiled the water. You go wash up and sleep first. I'll be done in a while." Xiao Lulang thought she was making pills, so he didn't say anything. Gu Jiao continued to bury her head in the gunpowder. Seeing that he seemed to have something to say, she asked, "Is there anything else?" Xiao Lulang opened his mouth. "No. Forget it. Let's find the person first." The next day was the day Xiao Lulang entered the palace to give a lecture to the crown prince. When he just entered the upper study room, he heard that something big happened in the imperial harem. A steward of the Shang Palace Bureau died in his room. The emperor was furious and immediately rushed to the imperial harem after the morning court. Which steward was it? Xiao Lulang asked an old eunuch in the upper study room. The old eunuch whispered, "Steward Zhang, the emperor's clothes were all made by her." The emperor was still talking about her a few days ago. Xiao Lulang didn't know that Steward Zhang was actually a female official who was highly regarded by the emperor. The old chancellor didn't say anything. Of course, it could also be that the old chancellor didn't know. After all, it was a matter of the imperial harem. As a minister of the previous dynasty, it wasn't strange that he didn't know. However, he just looked for her last night and something happened to her today. This was very strange. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428826/111898167. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com Chapter 322. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In Rancho Palace, Empress Dowager Zhuang was dealing with the backlog of official business in recent days. She was old after all, and it took a long time for her to recover from a serious illness. It was only now that she finally realized how difficult it was to recuperate in the countryside. Leprosy was not an ordinary cold. Its contagious nature alone was daunting. She didn't know why those two dared to take her in. Moreover, her family's conditions were already very poor. She didn't even know her next meal and still had to take care of a sick person. Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. Empress Dowager, are you thinking of the days in the countryside again? Eunuch Qin asked with a smile. Yes. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't deny it. At that time, they lied to me that I had tuberculosis and told me not to go out, lest I spread the disease to the villagers. Eunuch Qin was surprised. You really believed it? Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. How could I not believe it? I don't remember anything at that time. Eunuch Qin thought about it and agreed. Then, what happened later? Empress Dowager Zhuang recalled. After about 10 days to half a month, they ate at the same table as me. Ah. Eunuch Qin was surprised. You were cured in half a month? No. Empress Dowager Zhuang shook her head. It was just that it was no longer contagious. I continued to take the medicine for half a year. Ordinary people wouldn't do this. Even if they were cured of leprosy, they would be avoided like snakes and scorpions. Miss Gu and Xiao Xiuzhua treated you sincerely. This servant is happy for you. Eunuch Qin's words came from the bottom of his heart. He met the Empress Dowager when she was banished to the cold palace. He was a little eunuch in the cold palace. He was chosen by the virtuous Empress and was asked to serve by her side. After the virtuous Empress left the cold palace, he was also taken out. In the blink of an eye, he had accompanied the Empress Dowager through ups and downs for dozens of years. There were many people who flattered the Empress Dowager, but those who truly cared for her without asking for anything in return were rare. If the Empress Dowager wasn't the Empress Dowager, then they wouldn't be the Empress Dowager Zhuang. Miss Zhuang always complained that the Empress Dowager loved Miss Gu more than her own family. But Miss Zhuang didn't think about it. Was she really half as sincere to the Empress Dowager as Miss Gu was to the Empress Dowager? He had spent most of his life alone, lonely at the top. Who would have thought that he would meet such considerate people in his twilight years? It's Xiao Xiuzhua. Eunuch Qin could also see that there was something wrong between Empress Dowager Zhuang and Xiao Xiuzhua. Although he was the Empress Dowager's trusted aide, the Empress Dowager didn't tell him everything. He had guessed half of the Empress Dowager's thoughts, but he could not guess the other half no matter what. Is it because he looks like the deceased young Marquis? Eunuch Qin asked cautiously. The Empress Dowager did not poison the young Marquis, but the Emperor did not believe it, Marquis Xianping did not believe it, and everyone in the world did not believe it. Perhaps even the Zhuang family thought it was the Empress Dowager's doing. The difference was that the Zhuang family would not blame the Empress Dowager. But she had always been wronged like this. When the Empress Dowager saw someone who looked so similar to the young Marquis, she was afraid that there would be a knot in her heart. Of course, this was what Eunuch Qin thought. It was unknown whether the Empress Dowager thought the same. Aija. Empress Dowager Zhuang was about to say something when a palace maid's panicked voice came from outside the study. Your Majesty, you cannot go in. I am the Son of Heaven. The whole world belongs to me. A mere Rancho Palace has blocked me outside the door twice. Do you want to rebel? It was the Emperor's angry shout. Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned impatiently and gave Eunuch Qin a look. Eunuch Qin walked out with a horsetail whisk and said to the palace maids, You can withdraw. He then bowed to the Emperor. Your Majesty, please come in. Humph. The Emperor coldly glared at everyone, flung his sleeves, and entered the Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. The Empress Dowager really has good means. You are not idle even when recuperating in Rancho Palace. You just have to make things difficult for me. Does the Empress Dowager not want to see me have a day of peace? Eunuch Qin, who had chased in, looked at the Empress Dowager and then looked at the pale-faced palace maids in the room. His face became very ugly. Empress Dowager Zhuang lightly said, "You can all withdraw." Yes. Eunuch Qin and the palace maids withdrew. Empress Dowager Zhuang expressionlessly looked at the emperor and threw the booklet in her hand on the table. "What are you doing?" The emperor sneered. "I should ask the Empress Dowager this question. What is the Empress Dowager doing? Is it not enough for you to listen to politics from behind the curtain? Is it not enough to control half of the country? Is it not enough to force my mother to go to the nunnery? How much more vicious do you want to be? Do you have to kill everyone around me one by one?" Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned. "Who did I kill?" "Huh." The emperor stood in front of the desk and looked at the dignified Empress Dowager Zhuang. "What is the Empress Dowager singing? You have already done it and you still don't dare to admit it. Haven't you and I already fallen out? There is no need to feign civility." Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes flashed with coldness, but her expression was still indifferent. "I have done too much. I don't know which thing you are referring to." The emperor angrily laughed. "You finally admit it. You are a crazy and vicious woman. Whatever you have, you can come at me. Why did you kill Manager Zhang? How did she provoke you?" "Manager Zhang?" Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned strangely. The emperor angrily pointed at Empress Dowager Zhuang. "Stop pretending. Last night, Manager Zhang was summoned to Rancho Palace by the Empress Dowager. When she went back, she hanged herself. Empress Dowager, do you dare to say that she was not killed by you?" Empress Dowager Zhuang sneered, raised her eyes slightly, and curled her lips. "So what if I killed her?" She slowly stood up, walked out from behind the desk, and walked towards the emperor step by step. "Can you cripple me or kill me? Even if Aijia kills everyone around you, what can you do to Aijia? You vicious woman." The emperor raised his hand. "Your Majesty." Xiao Lulang quickly walked in, threw away his crutches, held the emperor's hand, and shielded Empress Dowager Zhuang behind him. Empress Dowager Zhuang was startled when she saw the young man suddenly blocking in front of her. The young man's body was thin and his legs were not good, but he did not hesitate to block the emperor's courage. The emperor was unable to restrain his anger. "Xiao Lulang, get out of the way." "It's not the Empress Dowager," Xiao Lulang said solemnly. He did not move, nor did he let go. "It's not the Empress Dowager, it's this official. Last night, it was this official who called Manager Zhang over. It has nothing to do with the Empress Dowager." The emperor was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "Even you are speaking for her. Each and every one of you are all on her side. Xiao Lulang, you are the new top scorer that I personally appointed." Xiao Lulang said seriously, "This official is your Majesty's official and is your Majesty's top scorer. Because of this official does not want to see your Majesty make a mistake. Your Majesty's actions today will be recorded by historians in the future. Your Majesty is a wise ruler, and your achievements will be passed down through the ages. You cannot ruin your 100 years of reputation because of a moment of impulse." The emperor sadly and sullenly asked, "Was I wrong? Was I wrong?" Xiao Lulang said, "Your Majesty is not wrong, neither is the Empress Dowager. The one who is wrong is this official. This official shouldn't have come to find Manager Zhang. If your Majesty wants to blame someone, then blame this official. It was this official who caused her death." You. The emperor was so angry that his eyes were blood red and his entire body was trembling. Your Majesty, you have to know what happened." Eunuch Wei entered the room to persuade. His Majesty held back his emotions that could explode at any time and nodded. "All right, tell me, why are you looking for Manager Zhang? How did you cause her death?" Xiao Lulang couldn't say that he was investigating a case from 14 years ago. The timing wasn't right and there wasn't enough evidence. Xiao Lulang gave it some thought and said, This official is returning something to her on behalf of someone. When I was returning it to her, this official noticed that her emotions weren't right. This was the truth. When Manager Zhang received the broken inkstone, her emotions were indeed not right. However, Xiao Lulang didn't think too deeply about it at that time. Now that he thought about it carefully, he was afraid that there was a deeper bond and relationship between Manager Zhang and the old chancellor than he imagined. "Who are you delivering it on behalf of?" the emperor asked. "This official can't say," Xiao Lulang said. If he didn't say, wouldn't the emperor guess? How many people in the world could make him personally deliver a message to the palace? Since this person was related to Manager Zhang, then this person must be around the same age as Manager Zhang. A name was about to come out. "Summon Chancellor Hua." "Let go. Do you want me to summon Chancellor Hua to the Empress Dowager's bedroom? Follow me to the Imperial Study Room." "Yes." Xiao Lulang then let go of his hand. The old chancellor was summoned into the palace. The emperor didn't give him and Xiao Lulang a chance to make a confession. He directly asked someone to bring Xiao Lulang away and began to interrogate the relationship between Manager Zhang and the old chancellor. The emperor also didn't tell the old chancellor that Manager Zhang was already dead. However, how shrewd was the old chancellor? He could easily guess that something had happened. When an ordinary person was interrogated about their relationship with a female official in the palace, they would try their best to deny it. After all, it was a serious crime to blaspheme a female official. However, the old chancellor felt that this matter wasn't simple. He almost didn't think much before saying that he and Manager Zhang had an unknown past. There was also a token of love between them. Last night, he asked someone to return the token to her, which could be considered as ending their relationship. If what the old chancellor said was true, then Zhang Xiu committed suicide for love. The emperor squinted his eyes suspiciously. "Why did you end it? Is it because of the Empress Dowager?" "This official doesn't dare." "This official is because—" "I don't have much time left." The old chancellor began to pretend to be sick and act pitiful. He used all kinds of methods to pretend to be pitiful. "If your majesty doesn't believe me, you can call the little divine doctor. She was the one who diagnosed my terminal illness." Coming out from the imperial study room, the old chancellor saw Xiao Lulang, who had been waiting for a long time. "I'm sorry to have implicated teacher," Xiao Lulang said with guilt. The old chancellor sighed. "It's not your fault. I didn't think it through." "Teacher's clean reputation." The old chancellor waved his hand. "I don't have any clean reputation to speak of. Even though our relationship wasn't like what I said to your majesty, but in the end, I still let her down. She is my wife's younger sister." His wife's younger sister was adopted and brought to another village when she was young. They only recognized each other when they grew up. Before his wife died, she pulled his hand and asked him to take good care of her only younger sister, Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu wanted to marry him, but he wasn't willing to marry her. In the end, she entered the palace in a fit of anger. He fought fiercely with Zhuang Jin's. In order not to implicate Zhang Xiu, he didn't let anyone know about their relationship. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the only one who was exiled back then. His wife's younger sister, Zhang Xiu, would also be exiled. After all, the late emperor had ordered his whole family to be exiled. She could leave the palace when she was 25 years old. That year, she came to find me and asked again if I was willing to marry her. I said that I would take care of her for the rest of my life and treat her as my own younger sister. Then, she smashed my inkstone. After that, she was extremely regretful and compensated me with a new one, which was the one I asked you to return. When she gave it to me, I didn't hold it firmly and accidentally broke a piece. She smiled and said that we were even now. The old chancellor sighed. "Forget it, let's not talk about the past. She definitely didn't commit suicide because of love. Her death is fishy. I've asked His Majesty for His Grace to send her on her last journey. Come with me." Xiao Lulang. "Okay." The old chancellor and Xiao Lulang went to the Shanggong bureau under the company of Eunuch Wei. In the previous dynasty, people in the palace who hanged themselves would bring disaster to their family. This dynasty abolished this law, but the dead couldn't be buried and could only be thrown into the wilderness. The old chancellor gave Eunuch Wei a bag of silver. Eunuch Wei refused for a long time but didn't refuse. I have already arranged it properly. The corpse will be sent to the mass grave outside the West City Gate later. You can send someone to wait there. Thank you very much, Eunuch Wei. The old chancellor expressed his gratitude. Xiao Lulang examined Zhang Xiu's corpse and found that she indeed hanged herself. There were no traces of fighting or struggle. Then, Xiao Lulang discovered a situation and he paused. What's wrong? The old chancellor walked over and asked. Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. Instead, he lifted Zhang Xiu's left wrist and there was a mole on it. The old chancellor was stupefied. How could it be? That's right. How could it be Zhang Xiu? Many details that were overlooked last night flashed through Xiao Liulong's mind. When Zhang Xiu first saw him, she was so frightened that she almost fell down. He thought that she was like Eunuch Qin and the others who thought that he saw a ghost. But after thinking carefully, he didn't seem to have met Zhang Xiu before. She shouldn't know him. Even if she knew him, her reaction was a little too big. When he told her that he was investigating a palace maid who had a mole on her wrist, she knew that the matter back then was exposed. However, she didn't know that it was Xiao Lulang who was investigating and only thought that the person investigating the truth was her brother-in-law, the old chancellor. The old chancellor was Xiao Heng's teacher, so it was reasonable for him to investigate Xiao Heng's death. The reason why she left in such a miserable and desolate manner was probably because she had already decided to meet her death at that moment. She used her death to atone for her sins to her brother-in-law and his disciple. She also used her death to escape from reporting this matter to the mastermind behind the scenes. What kind of feelings did she have when she framed Zhuang Jin's back then? What kind of feelings did she have when she discovered that Xiao Hang, who was poisoned by her, would actually become her brother-in-law's closed-door disciple one day? The old chancellor's throat swelled with pain. It's all for me. Zhang Xiu framed Zhuang Jins because he and Zhuang Jins didn't get along, which caused him to be exiled and almost lose his life. However, who would have expected that he and Zhuang Jins didn't become enemies in the end? Instead, Zhang Xiu sacrificed her life for nothing. Eunuch Wei had already bribed them so they could take away Zhang Xiu's belongings. Zhang Xiu's belongings were very simple. There were a few sets of clothes and a makeup box. In the box, there were a few pieces of jewelry that couldn't be any older. In the interlayer of the box, there were dozens of banknotes that were all written with the old chancellor's name. There was also the inkstone that Xiao Lulang had given her yesterday. The old chancellor's eyes were red. Teacher, Xiao Lulang said softly. I'm fine. Old chancellor wiped away his tears and packed Zhang Xiu's belongings into a bag. When he walked out, he staggered a little. Xiao Lulang supported him. The old chancellor's voice trembled. I'm really fine. Clang. The inkstone slid out from the bag and smashed onto the ground. The old chancellor bent down to pick it up. Xiao Lulang said, "Let me do it." He picked up the inkstone first. "I'll take it." The old chancellor didn't insist. His emotions were very complicated and his mind was in a mess. He felt that he had harmed Zhang Xiu and also Xiao Hang. He choked with sobs. "You don't blame her. You blame me. It's me. She did it for me," Xiao Lulang sighed. "If it's not her, there will be someone else. The one who is truly hateful is the mastermind. Teacher, don't blame yourself. What happened back then had nothing to do with you. What happened last night also had nothing to do with you." Since he wanted to investigate, he would investigate to this extent no matter what. The old chancellor had only accelerated the process by establishing a relationship with Zhang Xiu for him, and it wouldn't change the outcome. Zhang Xiu's ending was already destined when she extended her poisonous hand to an innocent 4-year-old child. He could forgive her, but the heavens wouldn't. The old chancellor went to collect Zhang Xiu's corpse and Xiao Lulang didn't follow him. Forgiveness was his greatest benevolence and he wouldn't prepare for her funeral. Xiao Lulang went to Ranshou Palace. Empress Dowager Zhuang continued to read the memorials presented by Grand Tutor Zhuang in the study room. The memorials passed through her hands once before they were returned to the ministers and presented to the emperor in the imperial court. Eunuch Qin was waiting at the side. When he saw Xiao Lulang, his eyes lit up and he said to Empress Dowager Zhuang, "The tea is cold. I will go and make a pot of hot tea." Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at Xiao Lulang. "Humph." Eunuch Qin smiled and left, taking the rest of the palace servants with him. "What are you doing here?" Empress Dowager Zhuang flipped through the memorials and asked indifferently. "Passing by," Xiao Lulang said. Both of them were people who would die if they explained more. No one was willing to break the ice first. "I'm leaving." It wasn't a big deal and he just came to take a look. He always knew that the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't have a good relationship, but he didn't expect it to be so direct. He was somewhat worried. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at him and turned around. She cleared her throat and asked, "Why did you speak for me?" Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "There's no reason. Eating the monarch's salary and bearing the monarch's worries is the duty of a subject." Eunuch Qin, who was eavesdropping outside, was about to die from anxiety. What bullshit duty of a subject? Did speaking human language burn his mouth? I'm so anxious that I'm going to die." He wasn't this anxious even if the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang were ice cold. After all, the Emperor was really infuriating. However, Xiao Xiuzhu was wholeheartedly devoted to the Empress Dowager. Eunuch Qin was really anxious that they misunderstood. They clearly cared about each other, so why did they have to act like strangers? Thud. The inkstone in Xiao Liulong's hand slipped and smashed to the ground. He bent down to pick it up and the pouch in his arms fell out. Seeing the pouch, Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes moved slightly. That was a birthday gift that Empress Dowager Zhuang gave to Xiao Lulang on his birthday on New Year's Eve. There was also one in Little Jing Kong. Empress Dowager Zhuang embroidered the orchid herself, but it was too ugly and looked like weeds. Thus, she had the old chancellor improve it and embroidered it into a piece of green bamboo. Some stitches were also added to the seams. But in the end, it wasn't too good-looking. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted, "How can you still wear such an ugly thing? Don't you find it embarrassing? In any case, you are someone who has become an imperial Hanlin official." Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. He put the pouch back into his arms and continued to walk out. "Come back." Empress Dowager Zhuang opened her mouth but didn't say the words on the tip of her tongue. If she didn't have such an awkward personality, she wouldn't have taken on so many scapegoats. Although she did do a lot of bad things. She threw away the booklet in her hand in annoyance. Her mood was terrible. Suddenly, Xiao Lulang, who had disappeared, came back. He came back so quickly that Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't even have time to restrain the annoyance in her eyes. He took a deep breath as if he had gathered some kind of courage and asked in a low voice, "Why don't I have one?" Empress Dowager Zhuang was stunned. Xiao Lulang clenched his fingers and his face turned red. However, he continued to gather his courage and asked, "Why don't I have one? Why didn't Ranshou Palace prepare something for me? Do you not want me anymore?" His tone was normal, but he couldn't hide the grievance in his eyes. Empress Dowager Zhuang's heart clenched. That grievance poked at her heart and made it hurt. She lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "I thought you didn't want it." "Why don't I want?" Before he could finish, Xiao Lulang paused. "I thought you didn't want it." The amount of information in this sentence was enormous. Xiao Lulang didn't want his Grey Tan's things. Xiao Heng didn't want it. Empress Dowager Zhuang knew who he was. She also remembered that she had once poisoned Xiao Heng. She also knew that Xiao Heng had always been afraid of her, and hated that he couldn't stay away from her. "You didn't think?" "Ask me." I thought about it, but I was afraid. Empress Dowager Zhuang almost used up all her courage and face to confess her feelings. Because she cared too much, she was afraid of being rejected. Therefore, she first rejected the possibility of being rejected. She would rather take the blame 1,000 times than be honest with him. Her self-esteem was just that strong. That was how twisted she was. But the trace of grievance in Xiao Liulong's eyes completely destroyed the self-esteem she had accumulated for decades. "It's not that I don't want it." Xiao Lulang turned his face away and said in a wronged and awkward tone. He was also a stubborn person. He was also too embarrassed to say it. Moreover, he was still a child. In front of the elderly, at least. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked straight at him, her eyes shining. "What did you say?" "Nothing." Xiao Lulang walked out expressionlessly. Before he walked out of Ranshou Palace, Eunuch Qin caught up with him and said with a smile, "Xiao Xiuzhua, please wait. You forgot to bring something." Xiao Lulang, "I didn't." Eunuch Qin, "Yes, yes. Please come with this servant to get it." Xiao Lulang was brought to a side hall of Ranshou Palace by Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin pushed open the door and said with a smile, "Please." Xiao Lulang stepped inside. At a glance, the spacious side hall was filled with bookshelves, and the bookshelves were filled to the brim with books. And beside the window sill where the sun was shining, there was a desk. The 4 treasures of the study on the desk emitted a faint ink fragrance. In the center of the desk was a brocade box. Eunuch Qin took the brocade box. "Here." Xiao Lulang opened it and found a token of Ranshou Palace lying inside. Eunuch Qin sighed. The Empress Dowager had already prepared it, but I don't know why she didn't take it out. And this side hall was also remodeled by the Empress Dowager. At first, this servant didn't understand why the Empress Dowager remodeled such a large library. Today, I finally know its purpose. They only had a small room or a small courtyard, but he had such a large library? Xiao Lulang found it hard to believe and was speechless. He didn't suspect that Eunuch Qin's words were false. After all, the token could be given, but the library couldn't be made. The smell of paint was new and strong. He stood there in a daze, like a dumbfounded little chick. It was also at this moment that the air of youth faded from his body, and he had a bit of a child's naivety and inexperience. Being forced to grow up was helplessness, but being spoiled like a child was a kind of luck and happiness. Xiao Xiuzhua. Eunuch Qin found a bundle to put the brocade box and the inkstone in. He turned his head and saw Xiao Liulong's dazed expression. He waved his hand in front of his eyes. "Don't be too happy." "I'm not too happy," Xiao Lulang said without changing his expression. He took the bundle and walked out with his hands and feet. Eunuch Qin, whose face was full of black lines, was speechless. Xiao Lulang walked half of Ranshou Palace with his walking stick in one hand and the brocade box in the other. The palace maids and eunuchs of Ranshou Palace were stunned. He looked like a dog, but why was he so retarded when he walked? Xiao Lulang had already left Ranshou Palace, but he paused and turned back. He stood outside Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. He didn't go in. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "There's no need to thank me. Ijia is mushy." Damn it, she already regretted saying so much just now. She must have been possessed to be defeated by this brat's grievances. If she was given another chance, she would stab him in the heart 100 times and never admit that she was afraid of being rejected by him. Xiao Lulang pursed his lips and stuck his head in from outside the door. He complained very childishly, "Great aunt, Imperial Tutor Zhuang bullied me." After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. Well, it was the first time he was so childish. He was so embarrassed that he forgot that he was still a cripple. As soon as he ran, he tripped and rolled down the steps, falling flat on the grass. Everyone, they couldn't bear to watch. Empress Dowager Zhuang's lips curled up imperceptibly. In the next second, she resumed her cold expression and said in a dignified and domineering manner, "Summon Imperial Tutor Zhuang." Digression, maybe it was because I stayed up too late recently that I was especially tired. I could fall asleep sitting in front of the computer. This month's update was more than last month's. I could basically guarantee 7,000 to 8,000 words a day, sometimes 9,000. It was a serious overdraft. Actually, on Monday, the editor told me to reduce my updates and prepare to save up a burst of chapters. I told the editor that I wouldn't reduce my updates until the specific date was out and let the readers read more. Once the date was confirmed, I should be able to complete the task by increasing the intensity of my writing every day. But I didn't expect that I would have to submit 2 drafts while updating 7 to 8,000 words a day. It was completely overdraft. I didn't update much today, so please forgive me. I will adjust my state as soon as possible. Good night. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/111879297. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 323. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are available here. It was inconvenient for men to enter and exit the harem. Even if they did, they had to have the emperor's imperial edict or verbal order. But obviously, Empress Dowager Zhuang had this right herself. Grand Tutor Zhuang was brought into Ranshou Palace by Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin handled matters in a proper manner and smiled appropriately, making it difficult for people to guess the purpose of Empress Dowager Zhuang's summons. They thought it was something good. Grand Tutor Zhuang went to the study in the side hall. Empress Dowager Zhuang had already been reading the memorials all morning. But because there had been a backlog for several days, there was still a portion that hadn't been approved. Empress Dowager. Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled as he entered and bowed with cupped hands. Empress Dowager Zhuang ignored him and just calmly flipped through the mountain of memorials in her hands. Grand Tutor Zhuang thought Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't hear him, so he took a step forward and said again, "Empress Dowager?" "Aijia is not deaf," Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently. She didn't even lift her eyelids and put the memorial she had read into the pile that couldn't be presented to the emperor. Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression changed slightly. But then he thought of the news he heard this morning. One of the emperor's most valued stewards hanged himself. The emperor suspected it was the Empress Dowager's doing and came to Ranshou Palace to make a scene. It must be because of her that the Empress Dowager's mood was not good, right? Grand Tutor Zhuang thought. Empress Dowager Zhuang read 7 or 8 more memorials before saying indifferently, "You've been very arrogant recently." Grand Tutor Zhuang was confused by these sudden words. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang in surprise. "Why do you say that? What did this official do wrong?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, "Your hand has stretched too far. There are some people you can't touch." Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. This official doesn't understand. If you don't understand, then listen to Aijia. Empress Dowager Zhuang said coldly, "The Zhuang family has 100 years of foundation. Generations of high-ranking officials. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the capital's #1 clan. But over the years, Aijia's doting has gradually nurtured your arrogance, relying on your talents to become unrestrained. Do you think that no matter what you do, I have to take responsibility for you? That's right, I am a member of the Zhuang family and you are my maternal family. As long as I am in power, I will protect you." But have you ever thought about how long Aijia can protect you? Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression suddenly changed. Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Zhuang said resentfully, "When the bow is full, it will break. When the water is full, it will overflow. You only see that I am like the sun in the sky, but you don't see that behind me, the building is about to collapse and a lone tree cannot support. Aijia is old and does not have many years left to live. You are also old. The talents of the Zhuang clan have withered and there is a shortage of young and old people. Those of the direct line of descent are all useless. Only Zhuang Yuheng is like a white jade with a slight flaw. But even this child is about to be ruined by you. Your Majesty! Grand Tutor Zhuang lifted the hem of his robe and knelt down with a face full of fear and trepidation. Of course, there was more confusion in his eyes. He didn't understand why the Empress Dowager would say this and why she would diminish his prestige like this. Not to mention that Empress Dowager Zhuang still had at least 10 years to live. Even if she didn't, His Highness Prince Ning's wings were growing. As long as he inherited the throne, there was no need to worry about the Zhuang family not continuing its glory for 100 years. But the walls had ears. There were some words that he didn't dare to say too much. Your Majesty, don't say that. You will be blessed for 100 years. Humph, 100 years? If Aijia had not been saved by Xiao Lulang and Lady Gu, I'm afraid I would have been buried long ago. Grand Tutor Zhuang seemed to suddenly understand. He looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang in astonishment. Your Majesty is blaming me for suppressing Xiao Lulang? He is His Majesty's man. How can I allow him to grow in Hanlin Academy? Empress Dowager Zhuang slammed the booklet in her hand on the table. I don't need you to tell me who he is. Grand Tutor Zhuang was shocked by Empress Dowager Zhuang's powerful aura. He hadn't seen Empress Dowager Zhuang so angry in many years. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He cupped his hands and lowered his head. Chen doesn't dare. Empress Dowager Zhuang said coldly, What Aijia told you was state affairs, political affairs, and family affairs, but you only heard private matters. Aijia's painstaking efforts have been wasted. That's fine. Aijia won't speak anymore. We are siblings. Aijia will give you 8 words. Achieve scholarly achievements. Retreat bravely at the top of the stream. Grand Tutor Zhuang clenched his fists. His eyes were like torches. Retreat bravely at the top of the stream. Are the efforts of the Zhuang family's generations all wasted? The Zhuang family is at the helm of the court and has great achievements. Which part of the great Zhao country's rivers and mountains did not have our Zhuang family's contributions? Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes were cold. Her powerful aura surged forth like a flood. The achievements belong to the Qin family. The rivers and mountains also belong to the Qin family. Saying such disgraceful words, Grand Tutor Zhuang, are you thinking of rebelling? Grand Tutor Zhuang's heart shook. After a moment of daze, he cupped his hands and said, Chen misspoke. Empress Dowager Zhuang coldly withdrew her gaze. Aijia has said everything. You can leave. Yes, Chen will leave. Grand Tutor Zhuang stood up. The hot June wind blew. He suddenly felt that his back was soaked with cold sweat. After Grand Tutor Zhuang left, Eunuch Qin entered with a cup of tea. He was guarding the door of the study and naturally heard the conversation inside. He placed the freshly brewed hot tea next to Empress Dowager Zhuang's hand and said with emotion, I didn't expect Empress Dowager to think so far ahead for the Zhuang family. This servant's vision was too low. I thought Empress Dowager summoned Grand Tutor Zhuang into the palace only to help Xiao Xiu vent his anger. Empress Dowager Zhuang picked up the booklet and snorted. Bullshit long term. It was just words. If Aijia only told him one thing, no matter how small it was, it would still be a big matter. If Aijia told him several big things, Liulong's matter would become a small matter. Since it is a small matter, there is no need to fuss over it. Eunuch Qin's face was full of bitterness and hatred. This servant is stupid. Empress Dowager Zhuang's mind flashed with the image of someone complaining and falling down. She was in a good mood and had a bit of patience with Eunuch Qin. Aijia heard that you recently raised a little turtle? Eunuch Qin smiled. You are really well informed. Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, It's not that Aijia is well informed. It's that the little turtle crawled to Aijia's feet that day. Aijia looked at it and found it unfamiliar. It was different from the ones you raised before. Eunuch Qin didn't have any other hobbies other than raising tortoises. As the saying goes, a 1,000-year-old turtle is a 10,000-year-old turtle. This turtle was a tortoise. A tortoise's life was longer than a turtle's. He thought that if he raised a tortoise, he might be able to live a long life. Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, "That one is well raised. Stew it in the evening." Ah! Eunuch Qin's expression changed greatly. "What? You can't bear to part with it?" Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. Recently, Aijia has been in conflict with these tortoises. The Taoist priest said that eating one would solve the evil spirit. If I can't, I can only send them all away. From now on, Ranshou Palace is not allowed to raise tortoises anymore. Eunuch Qin felt wronged. Then this servant will take to Quan and stew it for you. Who wants to eat that thing? Empress Dowager Zhuang was making an analogy with him. Eunuch Qin was instantly enlightened. Ah! Xiao Xiuzhu is that little tortoise. Empress Dowager Zhuang's cold gaze shot over. Who is the tortoise? Aijia thinks that you are the old tortoise. Cough, cough. Eunuch Qin was embarrassed. This servant's mouth is slippery. This servant doesn't know how to speak. This servant is a tortoise. But he returned to the topic. This move of yours is quite clever. Empress Dowager Zhuang sneered. Was it brilliant? How could her words not be sincere? It was just that the Zhuang family didn't want to retreat in the face of the current and couldn't retreat in the face of the current. They couldn't get out of this whirlpool for a long time. Today, the Imperial College and Qing He Academy were dismissed early. Nan Xiang and Master Lu had to go out for 3 days. Therefore, Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yan didn't need to go over to learn. The 3 little men gathered at home. Last night, little Jing Kong had already fallen asleep when he returned from the palace. His grand-aunt didn't have time to distribute the gifts that she brought. When he left in the morning, he forgot about it. He only remembered it now. Little Jing Kong carried the brocade box out and ran to the central room. Grand-aunt told me to bring it. The things that his grand-aunt told him to bring were usually for everyone. Yao She sat in the hall to enjoy the cool air. She smiled as she watched the children play in the central room. She felt that these days were lively and beautiful. It was a life that she didn't even dare to dream of in the past 10 years. I can't open it. Little Jing Kong's grip was too weak. Let me. Gu Xiaoshun rolled up his sleeves and pried open the box. The box wasn't big. After all, it was too big for little Jing Kong to carry. However, it wasn't small either. There were a lot of things inside. The 3 little heads squeezed together and looked at the gifts in the brocade box. Little Jing Kong took out the gifts one by one. Cat's eye stone, this is Brother Yan's. Gemstone knife, this is Xiaoshuan's. Silver needle, Jiao Jiao. Golden alms bowl, mine. Then there was an embroidery album. It was obviously for Yao Shi. Bad brother-in-law doesn't have it. Little Jing Kong shook his head and said, So pitiful. Poor Xiao Lulang entered the room valiantly. He put a brocade box that was twice as big as little Jing Kong's box on the table. The 3 little brothers opened their eyes wide. They looked at the brocade box and then looked at him. What is it? Little Jing Kong asked. Xiao Lulang answered him with his actions. He opened the brocade box and slowly took out the things inside and placed them on the table. The first was the token of Ranshou Palace. The second was a fist-sized luminous pearl. The third was an inkstone made of 10,000-year-old warm jade. After that, his movements were elegant and unhurried. It took him a full quarter of an hour to take out all the little things inside. The table was full of gifts. The 3 little boys stared at him with their eyes wide open. Little Jing Kong was dumbfounded. Is it from Grand-aunt? There were so many good things. Little Jing Kong asked, Which one is for me? Xiao Lulang extended his slender, jade-like fingertips and circled around the gifts. He picked up a blinding golden lock. This is mine. Little Jing Kong swallowed his saliva. He picked up the 10,000-year-old warm jade inkstone and said, Mine. Gu Yan swallowed his saliva. He picked up an emerald Turkic knife and said, It's also mine. Gu Xiaoshun swallowed his saliva. It's still mine. It's mine again. Ah, it seems like they're all mine. He suddenly became the biggest nouveau riche in the family. After showing off his trophies, Xiao Lulang put the last token of Rancho Palace into the brocade box. Then, he arrogantly returned to the room. Everyone, why did they suddenly feel that their brother-in-law was asking for a beating today? Gu Jiao didn't know about her husband's childish behavior. She just came out of the clinic and got on the carriage to Immortal Music House. She wanted to know who was behind Immortal Music House. She had a feeling that the person behind Immortal Music House had something to do with the person who wanted to assassinate her. At the same time, she also suspected that Yuan Tang had an extraordinary accomplice in the capital. In short, the key to everything was in Immortal Music House. Gu Jiao's Immortal Music House token hadn't been taken away by Mo Chenxue. She used the token to enter Immortal Music House very smoothly. She still changed into a noble young master's attire. She wore a silver half-face mask, which appropriately covered her silhouette. The only troublesome thing was that her clothes were too tight around her chest. It couldn't be helped. Apart from her height, her figure couldn't be hidden if it wasn't tight. But it was really hot. Gu Jiao wiped the sweat on her forehead with her sleeve and walked towards the center of the hall. She didn't plan to directly find the girl from last time. She just wanted to walk around and listen. Everyone loved beauty. It had to be said that the girls in Immortal Music House were all like people in paintings, very pleasing to the eye. Gu Jiao walked around casually. Suddenly, a peony flower fell on her shoulder. This was an old rule of Immortal Music House. The one who was hit by the flower was the one who caught the girl's eye. He would have the honor of being the girl's guest. This time, it was a girl dressed in yellow. She had beautiful eyebrows and a beautiful face. She was charming but not out of the ordinary, beautiful but not seductive. The girls in Immortal Music House didn't have the air of a prostitute. They were proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry and songs. There were even some who were proficient in eight-legged writing and arithmetic. It was an honor to be chosen by them. Gu Jiao looked at the peony flower in her hand and hesitated for a moment. In just a moment, the maid of the girl dressed in yellow came downstairs. She respectfully bowed to Gu Jiao. "Young master, my family's miss invites you." Although this girl was on the second floor, after she threw the flower at her, no one else dared to throw flowers at her. One must know that last time, she was almost drowned by the flowers. Gu Jiao didn't think that her charm was gone. It should be that this girl's status in Immortal Music House wasn't simple. Okay. Then it's her. Gu Jiao followed the maid up to the second floor. The girl dressed in yellow held a fan to cover her face. She smiled sweetly at Gu Jiao, turned around and walked into the room. Even when she walked, she exuded an air of immortality. "Young master, please." The maid led Gu Jiao to the front of the girl dressed in yellow's room. This room was at the end of the corridor. Compared to the other rooms, there was an extra door. Sure enough, she had a status. Gu Jiao nodded and stepped inside. The girl dressed in yellow sat in front of the window with her back facing Gu Jiao. She played a song. The sound of the song was mellow, as if she was weeping and complaining. It was like the sound of nature. After the song ended, she covered her face with a folding fan and walked in front of Gu Jiao. She gracefully and gently bowed. "This servant greets the young master. May I ask the young master's name?" Gu Jiao naturally wouldn't talk to her. She was about to take out a small book to write down her answer when suddenly, an ice-blue figure wearing a veil rushed in. She pulled Gu Jiao behind her and raised her hand to give the girl dressed in yellow a loud slap. It happened so suddenly that even Gu Jiao, the person involved, was a little confused. When she was pulled behind her, she didn't make a move because she didn't feel the other party's malice towards her. However, she didn't expect the other party to be so arrogant towards the girl dressed in yellow. The girl dressed in yellow was slapped to the side, and a few fingerprints quickly appeared on her cheek. She covered her face and looked at the uninvited guest in the room in disbelief and anger. "Mo Chenxue, you're crazy. You're the crazy one. How dare you touch the person I like?" Mo Chenxue said. She pulled the sachet from the girl's waist and coldly threw it on the ground. You even used charming fragrance. Hua Xiao, how dare you? The girl dressed in yellow called. Hua Xiao's eyes flashed, and she unconsciously showed fear. Her body retreated slightly. Mo Chenxue said disdainfully, "Humph. For the sake of the owner, I'll spare you this time. If you dare to have any ideas about my people again, I'll scratch your face." After saying that, she grabbed Gu Jiao's wrist and took Gu Jiao out of Hua Xiao's room. Looking at Mo Chenxue's back, Hua Xiao's eyes burst out with resentment. Mo Chenxue directly took Gu Jiao to the third floor. The third floor was as silent and empty as ever. Gu Jiao poked her little shoulder and asked her with her eyes, "Are you the only one living on this floor?" Mo Chenxue said angrily, "There's also the owner." The owner? Could it be the owner of Xianle House? Mo Chenxue took Gu Jiao's hand into her room and looked at Gu Jiao fiercely. "Where did that woman touch you?" Gu Jiao shook her head like a rattledrum. Mo Chenxue frowned. "You didn't touch me? Really?" Gu Jiao nodded. Mo Chenxue's expression slightly relaxed and looked at the stool next to the square table. "Sit down." Gu Jiao sat down. "Bring water," Mo Chenxue ordered. "Yes." The little maid brought a basin of cold water. Mo Chenxue personally wrung a towel and went to wipe the sweat on Gu Jiao's forehead. Gu Jiao subconsciously leaned back. Mo Chenxue's hand missed. "Don't dodge." Gu Jiao, oh. Mo Chenxue carefully wiped Gu Jiao's forehead. As she wiped, she muttered unhappily, "Are you an idiot? Why didn't you come directly to the third floor? No one dares to stop you." I didn't come to find you." Mo Chenxue pursed her lips and explained expressionlessly, "I didn't tell you before. Yesterday was my birthday and I went to the lake, so I wasn't in Xianle House." You don't have to explain to me. Digression, there are no double events this month, so you don't have to keep your monthly tickets until the end of the month. You can vote now. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/111853516. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 324. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. After all, Gu Jiao was not a real man. There was no such thing as male and female touching. However, Gu Jiao was not used to being so close to others. When Mo Chenxue finished wiping her forehead and was about to wipe her neck, she grabbed her wrist. Mo Chenxue glared at Gu Jiao and raised her other hand to take off Gu Jiao's mask. Gu Jiao also grabbed her wrist. Mo Chenxue knew martial arts, but she was not as good as Gu Jiao. She could not move. She said angrily, I know. I won't touch you. You do it yourself." Gu Jiao let go of her hand. Mo Chenxue rolled her eyes and snorted. She threw the towel to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao wiped the sweat off her neck. The weather was really hot. It was even hotter with the towel wrapped around her chest. Wearing the mask was like adding heat to heat. Luckily, Mo Chenxue's room was facing a good direction. It was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There was also a basin of ice. Otherwise, Gu Jiao might really have gotten a heat stroke. Gu Jiao put the towel back into the copper basin. A servant girl came in to take it away. Xiao Wu, are there any more lychees that arrived this morning? Mo Chenxue asked. The servant girl called Xiao Wu said, There are. This servant will bring them for Miss. Not long after, Xiao Wu brought in a plate of iced lychees. The lychees were all big and plump. They were bright red, as if they had just been plucked from a tree. The capital did not produce lychees. They were all sent from the south. Not only did the horses have to be fast enough, they also had to change the ice along the way. If they were not careful, the lychees would spoil when they reached the capital. These were very luxurious fruits. Gu Jiao had only eaten them at Ranshou Palace. She heard from Madame Yao that even the Marquise Fu had a hard time getting these fruits. Who would have thought that such luxurious fruits could be eaten in a small brothel? Gu Jiao looked at the lychees and did not move for a moment. If you don't eat it yourself, are you waiting for me to peel it for you? Mo Chenxue snorted. Her slender fingers picked up the biggest and reddest lychee, peeled it and fed it to Gu Jiao. The peeled lychee was big and round, white and bouncy. It looked especially fresh and juicy. Eat it yourself, Gu Jiao said with her eyes. Humph. Mo Chenxue rolled her eyes. I'd rather throw something away than take it back. Sigh, what's more, I can't get along with the fruit. Gu Jiao reluctantly took it and put it into her mouth. She had been a little heaty recently, so she couldn't eat too many lychees. Mo Chenxue's eyes lit up again when she saw her eat. She rested her right elbow on the table and rested her index finger on her delicate chin. She looked at Gu Jiao with a smile and said, Young master, why did you suddenly come looking for me? Did you miss me? Gu Jiao took out a small notebook and scribbled. I didn't come looking for you. Mo Chenxue's face darkened. She snatched the notebook and crossed out the word, no. Then she wrote, yes, and added a sentence at the end. I miss you very much. She then threw the notebook back to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao. How could this work? Mo Chenxue raised her brows. Did you use the fruit I gave you last time? Did you find the culprit? Gu Jiao nodded, then shook her head. Mo Chenxue frowned. What do you mean? Did you find the culprit or not? Gu Jiao scribbled. Half. Yuan Tang was the culprit, but Yuan Tang couldn't have done it alone. Gu Jiao felt that he had a helper. Then I can't do anything. Mo Chenxue spread her hands. I just happened to overhear their conversation and picked up one of their fruits. So Yuan Tang and the culprit exchanged information at Immortal Music House. Immortal Music House wasn't a place where just anyone could enter. The culprit was either a guest or a member of Immortal Music House. There was even the possibility that the culprit was the owner of Immortal Music House. Gu Jiao scribbled. Who's the owner of Immortal Music House? You're asking about the owner. Mo Chenxue leaned closer to Gu Jiao and looked at Gu Jiao with a half-smile. There was a teasing look in her eyes, but there was also a trace of vigilance. Why are you asking about this? Gu Jiao scribbled. I'm just curious. If it's not convenient to say, then forget it. This was what it meant to retreat in order to advance. Mo Chenxue pursed her lips and said uninterestedly, Actually, I don't know. I've only seen the owner twice, and it was through a screen. I don't even know what the owner looks like. A dignified courtesan didn't even know the owner's true appearance. The culprit was really hiding too deeply. Gu Jiao thought of what Mo Chenxue had said when she was teaching the yellow-clothed woman a lesson. For the sake of the owner, I'll spare you this time. She wrote. What's the relationship between Hua Xiao and the owner? You even remembered that little B*****''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''' Mo Chenxue immediately exploded. Gu Jiao was speechless. How was she supposed to answer this? Mo Chenxue said angrily, Have you taken a fancy to that little B*********? Gu Jiao scribbled. She's so ugly, it's hard to forget her. Hearing Gu Jiao call her ugly, Mo Chenxue laughed. Her anger instantly disappeared. She said proudly, Her relationship with the owner isn't that great. She only served the owner for a few days. The owner saw that she was somewhat beautiful and asked me to teach her well. Don't worry, she won't dare to bother you again. Gu Jiao nodded. She had one last question. Is the owner a man or a woman? Mo Chenxue said, of course the owner of Xianle House is a woman. Could it be you stinky men? I won't work myself to death for a stinky man. Women work themselves to death. Gu Jiao remembered these two important clues. Mo Chenxue couldn't get any more information. Gu Jiao got up and left with the excuse that it was already late. Mo Chenxue pursed her lips, her eyes showing that she still wanted to continue. However, she probably had other plans for the evening, so she didn't ask Gu Jiao to stay. She walked Gu Jiao downstairs. When they reached the corner of the stairs, she suddenly pulled Gu Jiao's sleeve. At least tell me your surname. Gu Jiao wrote. Gu. Young Master Gu. Mo Chenxue murmured this name and smiled. Not bad. When she and Gu Jiao passed by the stairs of the second floor, they unexpectedly met Hua Xiao. Hua Xiao was obviously a little afraid of Mo Chenxue. She lowered her head, stepped aside, and slightly bowed. Mo Chenxue snorted coldly. She didn't even look at her and walked Gu Jiao downstairs. Hua Xiao touched her still aching face, her eyes full of resentment. Mo Chenxue, wait and see. You won't always be so lucky. The little maid stepped forward and said to Hua Xiao, Miss Hua, the shadow guard just sent a message. The owner is back. Hua Xiao's eyes lit up. I'll go and pick up the owner. The little maid said embarrassedly, No, the shadow guard said to let Miss Chenxue pick her up. Hua Xiao clenched her fingers and looked at Mo Chenxue, who was smiling and bowing to Gu Jiao at the door of Xianle House. She was so angry that she stomped her foot. Mo Chenxue, Mo Chenxue, everything is Mo Chenxue. After coming out of Xianle House, Gu Jiao went straight back to Bai Shui Alley. It was late at night. Every house in the alley was closed. Lanterns were hung under the porch. The weak candlelight illuminated the long path with a dim yellow color. Gu Jiao came to the door of the house and found a little boy sitting on the threshold pitifully. Although he didn't say anything, she could feel that his little body was shrouded in a huge grievance. Gu Jiao walked forward and whispered, Jing Kong. Hearing the familiar voice, little Jing Kong suddenly raised his head and ran to Gu Jiao. Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao bent down so that the little boy could jump into her arms. Little Jing Kong jumped into her arms and grabbed her clothes. He curled his lips in grievance. Jiao Jiao. What's wrong? Gu Jiao picked up the little boy. Little Jing Kong's little mouth twitched. Great Aunt doesn't like me anymore. Gu Jiao found it funny and asked, Why doesn't Great Aunt like you anymore? Who told you that? Little Jing Kong snorted. Brother-in-law. Gu Jiao said, He said that Great Aunt doesn't like you anymore. Little Jing Kong shook his head. Gu Jiao asked again, Then how do you know that Great Aunt doesn't like you anymore? Little Jing Kong said with grievance, Great Aunt gave brother-in-law a lot of things, but she didn't give me so many things. Am I still the little boy that Great Aunt loves the most? He emphasized the word little boy, because he didn't want to take Gu Jiao out. In his heart, Great Aunt could treat Jiao Jiao the best. He wouldn't be jealous of Jiao Jiao. Gu Jiao smiled. But when Great Aunt gave you things in the past, brother-in-law didn't give you anything either. Little Jing Kong thought about it seriously. That seemed to be the case. So Great Aunt didn't give brother-in-law more things on purpose. She just made up for all the things that she didn't give him before? Thinking of this, he felt better in his heart. But he still wanted to take this opportunity to ask for a kiss. He drooped his little head. But I'm still a little hurt. Where did he learn to say such adult words? New words came out of his mouth again, which made Gu Jiao feel that it was novel and cute. Gu Jiao gave him a kiss. Little Jing Kong was completely satisfied. He covered his little face and quickly ran back to the room to find a veil. Gu Jiao walked through the front yard and entered the central room. When she was about to go back to the west room, she looked up and saw that the door of the study was open. An oil lamp was lit inside, and Xiao Lulang was reading hard under the oil lamp. The door of the study was usually not open like this, especially when Xiao Lulang was reading. At this time, from the doorframe to the threshold, every inch of the room seemed to silently reveal a sense of, "Come in, come in." Gu Jiao stepped into the room. The study was clean and tidy as usual. Facing the door was Xiao Liulong's desk. Little Jing Kong often used it nowadays. Half of the space on the desk was occupied by little Jing Kong's books, ink, and paper. The other half belonged to Xiao Lulang. An exquisite wooden brocade box was placed in the most conspicuous position. Xiao Liulong's chair was facing the door. He didn't look up, as if he was immersed in the sea of arithmetic questions. Since he got the Yen Kingdom's advanced mathematics book, he took time to study and research every night. Gu Jiao didn't find it strange. It was still strange. The atmosphere was a little strange. The chair opposite him was also placed. It seemed to be waiting for someone to sit down. Gu Jiao came to the chair opposite the desk and sat down. "I heard that you went to the palace today?" Xiao Lulang said seriously. "Yes, I went to see Grand Aunt." The box was placed just right. Gu Jiao could reach it with her hand. She pointed at the box. "This is from Grand Aunt?" "Yes." Xiao Lulang nodded seriously. "You can take a look." His eyes said silently. This time, it wasn't to show off. It was to share his gains and joy. He wanted to do this on the way back. He didn't know what kind of emotion it was, but he just wanted to tell her about it. "Let me see," she said. Xiao Lulang nodded seriously. Gu Jiao opened the brocade box. She looked at the things in the brocade box, but Xiao Lulang was looking at her. This reminded him of when he was a child. When his article was praised by the headmaster, he would take the article to the princess mansion and couldn't wait to tell Princess Xinyong. When Princess Xinyong read his article and the headmaster's comments, he would be excited and nervous. Just like now. Why was it? Did he care? "It's more than I thought." Gu Jiao thought that Grand Aunt was really just making up for the gifts that she didn't give before, but she didn't expect that there were more. No wonder little Jing Kong was so jealous. But there must be other reasons. There must be a misunderstanding between Grand Aunt and him. Now it seemed that the misunderstanding was cleared. Gu Jiao smiled and looked at him. "Grand Aunt loves you very much." Xiao Lulang suppressed the smile on his lips and said indifferently, "For you." "Which one is for me?" Gu Jiao looked at the box of valuable things and asked. "All for you," Xiao Lulang said. Gu Jiao opened her eyes wide. "So much." Xiao Lulang saw the surprise in her eyes and smiled again. He took out a money bag and handed it to her. "And this month's expenses." Wow, she was rich. Gu Jiao blinked and looked at the money bag and the things in the box. She couldn't believe it for a moment. Xiao Lulang looked at her deeply. Her mouth was open and her face was full of confusion. His gaze was attracted to her and he couldn't help but get closer to her. He looked at the face that was slowly enlarging in front of his eyes, and his heart started to beat fast. The world seemed to be quiet, and only the sound of his heart beating like a drum could be heard. "Sister, you're here." Gu Shaoshun suddenly ran in. The main reason was that the door was open. He didn't expect Xiao Lulang to steal a kiss from his sister at this time. Of course, he came fast enough and Xiao Lulang didn't kiss her. He sat back in the chair and put a huge distance between him and Gu Jiao. Gu Shaoshun scratched his head. "I think I saw something, but I also didn't see anything. I don't care. Business is more important." "Brother-in-law." He greeted Xiao Lulang. Xiao Liulong's eyes were full of resentment. Gu Shaoshun came to find Gu Jiao to help him fix his knife. He had another knife that had its handle off and he couldn't fix it himself. "Okay, I'll go take a look." Gu Jiao nodded and put the household expenses into the box. She took the box and walked out of the study with Gu Shaoshun. Xiao Lulang leaned weakly against the back of the chair. He was a little disappointed. But he didn't know what he was disappointed about. At night, the whole family went to sleep. Xiao Lulang rubbed his sore eyes and closed the book. After putting it back on the bookshelf, he planned to go to sleep. When he came to the living room, he saw a figure enjoying the cool air on a new swing in the front yard. Gu Jiao's mosquito coils were on the side of the swing. Upon seeing Xiao Lulang come out, the tiny figure on the swing suddenly stopped. She walked down the swing and came in front of Xiao Lulang. "Are you done?" Xiao Lulang looked at her in surprise. "You're not asleep yet?" He paused and asked, "Are you waiting for me?" "Yes." Gu Jiao nodded and looked at him with a pair of clear eyes. He had seen how cold these eyes were to other people, but at this time, they were obedient and bright. Her eyes reflected the candlelight in the corridor and also reflected his startled expression. "You." He opened his mouth. The two of them were a little close, and his heart beat violently again. Gu Jiao stood on tiptoe. "You've grown taller." She had to stand on tiptoe to reach you. Xiao Lulang looked at her face that suddenly came close to him. His eyes moved and his heart almost jumped out of his chest. He covered his heart and tried to calm down. "You." Gu Jiao maintained her tiptoe position and looked at him obediently. "Didn't you just think about it?" "Think? About what?" Xiao Liulong's blood rushed to the top of his head. He wasn't really a fool. How could he not understand what she was talking about? She found out. How did she find out? She pretended as if nothing had happened and didn't let Gu Xiaoshan notice anything strange. Gu Jiao tilted her little head. "If you don't want it, I'm leaving." As she spoke, she put down her tiptoe and turned back to her room. However, before she could take a step, Xiao Lulang grabbed her wrist. His palm was hot, and with an irresistible force, he brought her to him. He clasped her wrist with one hand and hugged her slender and soft waist with the other. His breathing became irregular. He raised his hand to cover her eyes and gently lowered his head. The moonlight was shy, and the room was filled with tenderness. At dawn, little Jing Kong woke up as usual. The first thing he did was to take off the veil wrapped around his face and head. Then, he looked at his little face in the bronze mirror. Actually, there was nothing on his face. "My darling is budding." He ran out and came to the backyard. He scooped half a ladle of water and put it on the stone bench. He grabbed a few drops of water with his fingers and gently sprinkled them on his little face. "Are you washing your face, Jing Kong?" Nanny Fong asked with a smile. Little Jing Kong corrected her, "I'm not washing my face, I'm watering my darling." Nanny Fong laughed heartily. Xiao Lulang came out of the kitchen with a basin of water in his hand. He put the basin on the stone table, scooped up the water, and splashed it on his face. He didn't even let go of his mouth. Little Jing Kong snorted, "Are you washing your face too?" Xiao Lulang raised his eyebrows and said, "No, I'm watering my darling." Little Jing Kong. Digression. Today is another day that my bad brother-in-law deserves a beating. 23333. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/111823506. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 325. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The capital gradually entered midsummer, and it started to get hot early in the morning. There were classes at the Imperial College and Qinghe Academy today, so little Jing Kong and Gu Xiaoshun woke up early. Gu Yan was lazing in bed as usual. He had a habit of lazing in bed and had a bad morning temper. He was only happy when Gu Jiao woke him up. But today, Gu Jiao didn't wake him up. He woke up by himself. He woke up from the heat. That was not the main point. The main point was that after he woke up, he lay on the bed and waited for Gu Jiao to wake him up. However, after waiting for so long, even when the flowers had withered, only Gu Xiaoshun came. Gu Xiaoshun pushed open the door and said strangely, "Aren't you going to get up? It's time for breakfast. Don't be late." Baby Yen was unhappy. Baby Yen turned over bitterly and muttered, "Where's my sister? Did she go to see a doctor?" Gu Xiaoshun pointed to the courtyard and said, "Oh no, she's over there." Huh. Gu Yen sat up and got out of bed. He walked to the door in his shoes and looked in the direction Gu Xiaoshun pointed. But what did he see? Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang were talking in the courtyard. She raised her head slightly and looked at the morning light. Her eyes were bright and the corners of her lips were slightly curved. He didn't know what they were talking about, but her eyes were curved into 2 crescent moons. So she forgot to wake him up because she was talking to his brother-in-law? Gu Yen felt sour in her heart. But there was more to come. Gu Jiao was in a good mood today. She personally cooked a table full of delicious dishes, all of which were Xiao Liulong's favorite. Xiao Lulang had recently become fond of spicy food. In fact, the 3 people from Little Jing Kong also liked spicy food, but they preferred spicy and sour food. The 3 of them were numb to the point that they had nothing left to live for. They leaned back in their chairs soullessly. If Gu Yen got angry, the consequences would be dire. He snorted and said, "I want tofu pudding. The salty kind." There was no tofu pudding at home, but there was at the market. It was still early, and the market was not far away. 15 minutes later, Gu Jiao returned with the salted bean curd. Then, Gu Yan watched expectantly as Gu Jiao walked past him with a bowl of salted tofu pudding. Gu Jiao brought the tofu pudding into Xiao Liulong's study and looked at him. "Your tofu pudding." Xiao Lulang, I didn't ask for tofu pudding." Gu Yan stood outside the study and exploded. "It's me. It's me. This is the tofu pudding that I wanted. I'm so angry." The room was dimly lit. The doors and windows were closed, and all the curtains were drawn. Only a small ray of light shone through the gap between the curtains. A small figure stood in the endless darkness. His eyes were sharp, and his aura was strong and powerful. You must have seen that the situation has become very serious. The enemy is very powerful and has already taken away half of our country. Do you still want to continue fighting with me? The small figure said in a deep voice. Opposite him, a tall and slender figure stood against the light. His aura was not weak either. This narrow space seemed to be filled with endless coldness and killing intent. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The small figure said, "Naturally, you and I have to put aside our prejudice for the time being and join hands to defeat the enemy. Otherwise, in a few days, you and I will no longer have a place in her heart." He nodded. "Okay, I promise you. Words are no proof. Let's make a contract." After the small figure finished speaking, he took out a pen and paper and wrote a contract. He also took out the ink pad that he had prepared earlier. "Sign and mark." The other party signed. The small figure looked at his signature and his hair stood on end. He suddenly raised his voice. "Why is your handwriting still so ugly?" Gu Yan coughed softly and said, "So what if it's ugly? Do you want to form an alliance?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while and nodded seriously. Yes. The 2 little love rivals, who fought from the countryside to the capital, finally put aside their prejudice under Xiao Liulong's repeated provocations and formed an alliance against his brother-in-law. After breakfast, Gu Jiao sent little Jing Kong to the Imperial College. Gu Yen and Gu Xiaoshun went to the Qinghe Academy. Xiao Lulang went to the Hanlin Academy. After the morning court, Grand Tutor Zhuang met Royal Prince and on the way and sent him to the Hanlin Academy. Coincidentally, Grand Tutor Zhuang's carriage bumped into Xiao Lulang outside the gate of the Hanlin Academy. Although Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't get out of the carriage, Royal Prince did. The carriage driver opened the curtain and Xiao Lulang and the officials who were about to enter the Hanlin Academy all saw him. Everyone bowed to him. Xiao Lulang also cupped his hands and bowed. Attendant Yang had been recuperating at home for a long time. Today, he finally came to work. When he heard the movement at the door, he hurriedly put down his work and rushed to greet Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang was a prominent figure among the civil officials. In the imperial court, many people responded to his call. Officials like Attendant Yang usually didn't see him. Today was an honor. Attendant Yang didn't want to let go of such an opportunity to please Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang. He bowed deeply. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at Xiao Lulang. He was secretly happy. This way, even the heavens were helping him. Attendant Yang straightened his back and ordered Xiao Lulang, "The Hanlin Academy's library hasn't been checked in a while. Go and check the books inside today. The list is with me. Go get it in a moment. After you're done, you can go and take it." Who didn't know that the library of the Hanlin Academy was larger than the library of the tribute compound? Even if several Hanlin officials worked together, they might not be able to finish organizing it in a day. This was purely looking for trouble with Xiao Lulang. Attendant Yang thought that Xiao Lulang would be like before and let him make things difficult for him. Unexpectedly, Xiao Lulang didn't even bat an eyelid. He said indifferently, "I have a class at the Hanlin Academy today. Why don't Attendant Yang find someone else to organize the library?" Attendant Yang was stunned when he heard this. What do you mean? What did this kid mean? He had openly disobeyed his orders in front of so many people, wasn't he? Attendant Yang's eyes flashed. "The class at the academy, there will be someone else to teach it for you." Xiao Lulang asked indifferently, "Oh? Who is free to teach it for me?" It's better to leave teaching to the truly capable Hanlin officials. As Attendant Yang spoke, he looked at Royal Prince and, "I wonder if Editor Zhuang is free today." Royal Prince thought for a moment. "I don't have anything else to do today." Attendant Yang smiled. Then, Xiao Lulang interrupted Attendant Yang and looked at Royal Prince and, "Since Editor Zhuang is free, why don't you let Editor Zhuang organize the library?" Attendant Yang said that you can't go off duty until you're done. Editor Zhuang needs to be fast. You. Attendant Yang was so angry that he choked. This kid didn't want to live anymore. He dared to order Royal Prince and to do things in front of Grand Tutor Zhuang? Xiao Lulang looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang in the carriage fearlessly. "Grand Tutor Zhuang, you don't have any objections, right?" Attendant Yang almost peed in his pants. Did Xiao Lulang eat a bear's heart or a leopard's guts? How dare he speak to Grand Tutor Zhuang like this? Who did he think he was? With His Majesty backing him up, he was so arrogant. Didn't he know that Grand Tutor Zhuang was on the Empress Dowager's side? Attendant Yang broke out in a cold sweat. He was afraid that Grand Tutor Zhuang would vent his anger on him. A cold light flashed in Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes. Xiao Lulang raised his eyebrows and said, "If you have any objections, you can speak to the Empress Dowager. This official will leave first." After speaking, he entered the Hanlin Academy without looking back. The crowd naturally did not know what medicine Xiao Lulang had taken today to be so arrogant. Only Grand Tutor Zhuang knew where Xiao Liulong's confidence came from. Xiao Lulang was just short of saying, "I can't beat you, but my lord can." Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that he suffered internal injuries. "Grandfather." Royal Prince looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang strangely. He also felt that Xiao Lulang was too strange today. Grand Tutor Zhuang suppressed his boiling anger and said word by word, "Go tidy up the library." Royal Prince and was stunned. Grandfather? Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't reply. He put down the curtain and let the carriage leave coldly. Grand Tutor Zhuang was very angry at Xiao Lulang. Even after returning to the Fu, his anger didn't lessen. Master. The steward brought over a pot of tea. He already understood what happened from the coachman. He advised, "Please calm down. You are the Empress Dowager's relative. That Xiao Lulang is just relying on the fact that he saved the Empress Dowager's life to intimidate her. He will fall into your hands sooner or later. Unless Xiao Lulang never entered the cabinet in his life, he would fall into Grand Tutor Zhuang's hands." Grand Tutor Zhuang gritted his teeth and said, "It's fine if he's just intimidating her. But the Empress Dowager really came to support that brat." The steward didn't know the details and thought that the Empress Dowager was just temporarily deceived. He continued to advise, "Don't be angry. Don't you have an appointment with Grand Secretary Yuan later? The marriage proposal has already been matched. The royal prince and the daughter of the Yuan family are a match made in heaven." When this was mentioned, Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression finally eased. Fortunately, the Empress Dowager was in charge of everything. She didn't care who Heng married. With this marriage with the Yuan family, the Zhuang family's position in the imperial court would become even more stable. Grand Tutor Zhuang took a sip of tea and said, "I remember Grand Secretary Yuan told me to bring Hang to meet him. In a while, go to the Hanlin Academy and tell Hang not to return home after his duty ends. He can go directly to the Qingfeng house." The steward replied, "Yes." In Zhao country, the marriage proposal was the first step in marriage. If the 8 characters didn't clash, then the marriage proposal could begin. However, Grand Secretary Yuan loved his granddaughter and promised to let her take a look. If the man's appearance was decent, then he would immediately agree to the marriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang was full of confidence in his grandson's appearance, so he obviously wasn't worried that the Yuan family would look down on him. Moreover, this marriage was mainly decided by Grand Secretary Yuan's opinion. Letting his granddaughter take a look was only his final compromise as a grandfather. Whether or not she liked Grand Secretary Yuan, he would still facilitate this marriage. However, no one expected that the steward who was serving at the Qingfeng house in the evening would have the coachman bring back news, saying that Grand Secretary Yuan had terminated the marriage proposal. What? How could this be? Grand Tutor Zhuang stood up from his chair. The coachman said with a trembling voice, I don't understand either." The steward didn't say much. "It seems quite serious. Why don't you make a trip yourself?" The steward didn't say much because it wasn't convenient for him to say anything. Could it be that something big had happened? Grand Tutor Zhuang hurriedly rushed to the Qingfeng house. Grand Secretary Yuan just happened to come out of the Qingfeng house with an ice-cold expression. Grand Tutor Zhuang cupped his hands like a colleague and politely greeted him, "Grand Secretary Yuan." Humph. Grand Secretary Yuan coldly glared at Grand Tutor Zhuang. "I truly didn't expect the Zhuang family to be filled with nobility to raise such a despicable person. In the past, this official made an error of judgment. Grand Tutor Zhuang, you're on your own now." Grand Tutor Zhuang was completely confused. What was this all about? How was this related to being despicable and making an error of judgment? Grand Secretary Yuan didn't feel like paying him any more attention. With a step, he got into the carriage and left. "Where is the royal prince?" Grand Tutor Zhuang asked with a calm expression. He's upstairs." The coachman hurriedly brought Grand Tutor Zhuang to the second floor. The second floor had already been cleared out by the steward, leaving only the relevant people. When Grand Tutor Zhuang arrived at the agreed-upon room, he unexpectedly ran into someone he never expected to see. Marquis Gu. Grand Tutor Zhuang frowned. The old Marquis had also just arrived. He had come up the stairs from the other side. The old Marquis's expression wasn't very good when the two unexpectedly met. Grand Tutor Zhuang was just about to enter the room, but the old Marquis beat him to it. Grand Tutor Zhuang's brows furrowed even tighter. It was one thing for Grand Secretary Yuan to throw him a cold tantrum, But why was even a marquis who had resigned from an official position treating him with such disdain? Could it be that his position as a powerful Grand Tutor had been for nothing? Very quickly, Grand Tutor Zhuang understood why the old marquis was acting this way. In the messy room, Royal Prince knelt on the ground with his clothes disheveled. There was blood on his thigh and a blood-stained dagger was thrown on the ground. Beside him was Gu Jinyu, who was curled up and shivering. Gu Jinyu was wrapped in blankets and sobbing uncontrollably. "Bastard!" The old marquis went forward and lashed out with his whip, hitting Royal Prince An's body. Royal Prince An didn't dodge and took the hit. His clothes were tattered and his chest was lacerated. "Stop!" Grand Tutor Zhuang shouted. However, he didn't stop and gave Royal Prince An another lash. Royal Prince An had some skills, but he wasn't an expert. The old marquis's whip reached the bone. After a few lashes, Royal Prince An fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Gu Chao, stop!" Grand Tutor Zhuang rushed over and stood in front of Royal Prince N. He looked at the old marquis furiously. "Are you trying to kill someone in front of the emperor? Let's talk things over." The old marquis trembled. "Talk things over? Your good grandson tarnished my marquis's daughter's reputation. If I ask someone to do the same to your Zhuang family's daughter, will you talk things over with me?" Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at the half-dead royal prince and then at the girl who was wrapped in blankets and crying silently. He clenched his fists and asked the steward, "What happened?" This matter started from when Royal Prince An went to the appointment. After Royal Prince An finished his shift, he went to Qing Feng restaurant with the steward of the Zhuang residence and waited for the Yuan family in the reserved room. Grand Tutor Yuan met an official from the cabinet downstairs and chatted with him for a while. Yuan Baolin went upstairs first. But who would have thought that Royal Prince An would send the servants away to drug Yuan Baolin? Yuan Baolin opened the window and escaped. Royal Prince An's drug was still in effect. Coincidentally, the Gu family's daughter was passing by and Royal Prince An caught the Gu family's daughter and brought her in, molested her. It was only molestation, not possession, but it was enough to ruin a girl's reputation and chastity. What was called misfortune never comes singly. This was it. Grand Tutor Zhuang seriously suspected that he had forgotten to look at the almanac when he left today. Otherwise, how could he have been so unlucky all day? There must be something fishy about this matter. Grand Tutor Zhuang believed in his grandson's character. Hang-er would not do this sort of thing. The old marquis angrily shouted, "He is your grandson. Of course you will side with him. But seeing is believing. My marquis's Manor's good daughter has been ruined by your Zhuang family's little bastard." Whether or not the old marquis doted on Gu Jinyu was one matter, but if someone dared to bully Marquis Ding An's manor, that was another matter. Moreover, even if the one to suffer today was not Gu Jinyu, but some other good family's daughter, he would still whip and Jun Wang. He was too much of a bastard. The old marquis could not take this lying down. Grand Tutor Zhuang also could not take it lying down. A perfectly good marriage had been ruined like this. Not only did he offend Grand Secretary Yuan, but he also became entangled with Marquis Ding and Manor. He did his best to suppress his anger and cupped his hands to the old marquis. He endured the humiliation and said, "I ask old Marquis Gu to remain calm. Give me a bit of time to investigate the truth. No matter what the truth is, I will give Marquis Ding and Manor an explanation." After the old marquis took Gu Jinyu away, the housekeeper helped Royal Prince An sit in a chair. He then tore off a piece of cloth to wrap around Royal Prince An's injured leg. Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes were about to spit fire. His fists were clenched so tightly that they cracked. The veins on his forehead throbbed. "Housekeeper, when something happened to the royal prince, where were you? How did you allow Hang-er to be alone with the Yuan family's daughter?" The housekeeper's body trembled. Royal Prince An's face was pale. His bloodless lips slightly parted. "It was I who had the housekeeper go to the kitchen to rush the dishes. It had nothing to do with the housekeeper." "Is that so?" Grand Tutor Zhuang's sharp gaze fell on the housekeeper's face. The housekeeper guiltily lowered his head. Of course, He wasn't sent away by Royal Prince N. He was called away by someone else. But he couldn't tell that person. He had promised Royal Prince N. He glanced at Royal Prince and without batting an eyelid. Royal Prince N had lost too much blood and his body was on the verge of collapsing. He used his remaining strength to say, "It's my fault. I could tell that Miss Yuan didn't have any feelings for me, so I came up with this plan. I planned to cook the rice and force Miss Yuan to marry me." Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't believe him. "Then where did you get the medicine? Don't tell me that Qing Feng Gang sells it." He couldn't have discovered her feelings at that time. If he had gone to buy the medicine then, it would have been too late. Royal Prince N weakly said, "I bought it in advance, just in case I needed it." Grand Tutor Zhuang flew into a rage. "Zhuang Yuheng. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111796096. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gur mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 326. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. Royal Prince N fainted due to his severe injuries. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry and anxious that he almost fainted. Royal Prince N was his grandson and he couldn't just leave him here. No matter how angry Grand Tutor Zhuang was, he had to bring Royal Prince N back to the mansion first. The steward hurriedly brought the mansion doctor to treat Royal Prince N's wounds. The medicine in Royal Prince N's body had already worn off. He was unconscious mainly because of the excessive blood loss from the wound on his thigh. He injured his left leg a few days ago and now his right leg is injured. This is really... The mansion doctor didn't know what to say. Royal Prince N probably didn't even suffer such a serious injury when he was a hostage in the Chen Kingdom. What was he doing every day? Basins of bloody water were brought out of the house by the servants. The entire courtyard seemed to be filled with the strong smell of blood. Grand Tutor Zhuang couldn't wait any longer outside the door. He walked in and asked in a low voice, "How is it?" Sigh. The mansion doctor cleaned Royal Prince N's wounds as he said, "This stab is too deep. It's so deep that the bone can be seen. I'm afraid it won't be easy to heal. The weather is so hot. On such a hot day, the slightest carelessness could cause the wound to become inflamed. Even if one was careful enough, there was no guarantee that nothing would go wrong. It was too chaotic just now." Grand Tutor Zhuang forgot to ask if the stab was from the Yuan family's daughter or Gu Jinyu. But so what if he asked? Could he still blame them? Naturally, he had no right to do so. Grand Tutor Zhuang ordered the manners doctor to treat Royal Prince and while he himself left the room. He called his trusted subordinates and asked them to investigate the Cool Breeze gang's activities today and whether there were any suspicious people. His trusted subordinate asked, "Master, do you still suspect that someone else did this?" Grand Tutor Zhuang said, I raised my own grandson. How can I not know his personality? He won't be so muddle-headed. Moreover, it's fine if he admits that he fell into a trap. But he's anxious to take the blame. He's clearly protecting the person in the dark." His trusted subordinate didn't understand. "Master, you're saying that the royal prince fell into someone's trap but is unwilling to reveal the culprit? Who is this person to the Duke? I'm only guessing, I don't have any proof." "Alright, you go investigate." Find out who that cabinet official Grand Secretary Yuan met at the entrance of the Cool Breeze Inn today as well. Even though Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't believe that Grand Secretary Yuan would scheme to harm his own granddaughter, the timing of that official's appearance was just too coincidental. If it wasn't for him stopping Grand Secretary Yuan family's young lady wouldn't have been left alone, and there wouldn't have been so many incidents later on. Right, where is Wu Yang? I remember that he's Hang Er's personal bodyguard. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, call him over. Wu Yang was really wronged. He had taken a few days off to attend the wedding of one of his brothers in the underworld. He knew nothing about Royal Prince and Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't get any clues from him, but he still charged him with the crime of failing to protect his master and punished him with 50 strokes of the cane. After the trusted imperial bodyguard investigated Cool Breeze restaurant, he returned to report to Grand Tutor Zhuang. We didn't find anyone suspicious. That cabinet official is Vice Minister Su. This subordinate has already investigated. His chance encounter with Grand Secretary Yuan was truly a coincidence. The cabinet official's degree of suspicion wasn't high. After all, the cabinet was controlled by Grand Tutor Zhuang himself. Normal people wouldn't be able to mobilize them. Grand Tutor Zhuang pondered for a moment before asking, why did the Gu family's young lady appear at the Cool Breeze Inn? The bodyguard said, the young ladies of the female school often gather at the Cool Breeze Inn. Second young lady and third young lady are also here today. However, they don't seem to know about the Duke's matters. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, call them over. Yes. Not long after, Zhuang Yueshi and Zhuang Mengdai were called into Grand Tutor Zhuang's room. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at the two with a heavy expression. Why did you go to the Cool Breeze Inn today? To play. Zhuang Mengdai said, recently, the Cool Breeze Inn has released a new song. It's played every day. We've been listening to it for several days. Today is the last song. Zhuang Mengdai was the worst at lying. Zhuang Yueshi lowered her eyes and didn't speak. Grand Tutor Zhuang glanced at the two and asked them to leave. Grand Tutor Zhuang frowned deeply. Everything seemed to be fine. Could it be that Zhuang Yuheng was the one who made the decision? After the two sisters left Grand Tutor Zhuang's courtyard, Zhuang Yueshi said to Zhuang Mengdai, you go back first. I'll go see my brother. What's wrong with my brother? Ducan's injury was kept a secret. Even Zhuang Mengdai didn't know about it. Zhuang Yueshi said, nothing. I have a question that I don't know how to solve. I want to ask my brother for advice. Do you want to come with me? Hearing that it was a question for advice, Zhuang Mengdai lost her interest. Although she liked her brother, she was more afraid of doing questions. I'm a little dizzy. I might have a heat stroke. I'll go back to my room to rest. You can do the question yourself. After saying that, Zhuang Mengdai ran away. Zhuang Yueshi went to Ducan's courtyard. The servants were surprised to see her coming. You can leave, she ordered softly. But master has ordered. A young maidservant whispered. Another servant girl pulled her sleeve and said to Zhuang Yueshi, yes, we will leave now. The two of them made way. Zhuang Yueshi walked into the courtyard and came to Ducan's bedroom. The doctor had finished treating his injury and went to the small kitchen to boil medicine for him. Only a personal servant stayed by the bed. You can leave too, Zhuang Yueshi ordered. The servant didn't dare to move. Zhuang Yueshi could order the two servant girls to guard the door, but she couldn't order the personal servant of Ducan. On the bed, Ducan slowly opened his eyes and said weakly, you can leave. Yes. The servant left respectfully. Without anyone else, Zhuang Yueshi rushed to the bed and grabbed her brother's hand worriedly. Brother. Ducan used his fingers to support his body and lay on his side. He raised his other hand and gave her a slap. This slap used all his strength. After the slap, he lay on the bed and spat out blood. Zhuang Yueshi was stunned. She looked at Ducan in disbelief. Brother. Ducan didn't have the strength to slap her a second time. He used his elbow to support his body and stared at her angrily. Why did you do this? Big brother knows. Big brother knows everything. Zhuang Yueshi looked at Duke and in panic. She wanted to refute, but she didn't know where to start. Duken's eyes were filled with pain and disappointment. If I didn't ask the butler who sent him away, I wouldn't know that my own sister did such a vicious and dirty thing. How did Miss Yuan offend you? Why did you scheme against her? Brother, Zhuang Yueshi was so panicked that her whole body was trembling. Big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Her mind was in a mess. She could not even answer the question. I never thought of hurting you. Don't you feel guilty about Miss Yuan? Duken was disappointed. This was his sister. You even implicated the daughter of Gu family. Are you satisfied now? Zhuang Yueshi choked. I didn't want to implicate Gu Jinyu. I didn't know that she would suddenly appear. Yuan Baolin is just a Taoist nun. She doesn't deserve brother. Duken said coldly, then find someone to defile her. I didn't. I just wanted to scare her, so that she doesn't have the right to marry you anymore. Zhuang Yueshi called the butler out. It wasn't just to send him away. She wanted the butler to lure Duken out. Duken noticed that something was wrong with the butler's expression. He immediately returned to the room and found that the daughter of Yuan family was drugged. She was being pestered by a strange man. He walked over and chased the man away. But because he touched the man's clothes, he was also drugged. Leave now, he shouted. The daughter of Yuan family jumped out of the window. He was worried that he would do something irreversible. So, while he was still rational, he rushed over and locked the door. But no one expected Gu Jinyu to pass by. Gu Jinyu didn't know what happened. Seeing that his expression wasn't right, she went into the room to ask him what happened. His rationality had collapsed. In a daze, he heard Gu Jinyu's cries. He pulled out the dagger at his waist and stabbed himself in the thigh. At this moment, Grand Secretary Yuan finished talking with his colleagues and came up for the appointment. Grand Secretary Yuan had seen him and Gu Jinyu in disheveled clothes, and then he had seen the mess in the room. Only young Lady Yuan was nowhere to be seen. He had no idea what Grand Secretary Yuan was thinking, but Grand Secretary Yuan had left in a huff. This marriage was called off. Duken laughed at himself. She doesn't have the right to marry me. Then who does? No one had the right. Brother was the best. He was the most outstanding man in the world. None of them were worthy of brother. But Zhuang Yueshi didn't dare to say these words. She could feel that brother was really angry. Brother might not want her anymore. She knelt down and grabbed Duken's wrist. She sobbed, "Brother, don't you already have someone in your heart?" I know that brother isn't willing to marry her. Duken was in a daze for a moment. Zhuang Yueshi cried, "Brother, I'm wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please forgive me. Get out." Duken lay down in a daze. He didn't pull back his arm. He didn't have the strength. It didn't matter. "I don't want to see you now. Brother." Zhuang Yueshi panicked. She had never been so scared. Her tears fell like a broken string of pearls. "Get out." Duken turned his back to her. He closed his eyes and didn't talk to her anymore. After Grand Secretary Yuan came out of Qingfeng brothel, he started to look for his granddaughter. He didn't find her nearby. He thought that his granddaughter went back and rushed back to the Grand Secretary's residence. The servant in the residence said, "Master, someone came just now and left a letter for you." Grand Secretary Yuan finished reading the letter and frowned. He drove the carriage to Bai Shui Alley. Little Jing Kong went for a chicken walk. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshun went to learn. Xiao Lulang was at the Hanlin Academy explaining to a few scholars. Gu Jiao was in the room giving acupuncture to the little Taoist nun. The one who received him was Yao Shi. Grand Secretary Yuan and the old Marquis were of the same generation. Yao Shi gave him a junior's greeting. Grand Secretary Yuan saw that she was pregnant and told her not to be so courteous. Yao She didn't say that she was from Marquis Ding and Manor. She only said that her husband's surname was Gu. There were many people in the capital with the surname Gu. Grand Secretary Yuan didn't think that Shi Yi was from Marquis Ding and Manor. He cupped his hands. Madame Gu. Yao Shi invited him to the central room. Granny Fong served tea. Yao Shi warmly said, "Today, I went to Shun Lai cloth shop near Cool Breeze brothel to make clothes. Unfortunately, I ran into young Miss Yuan who was injured and fainted on the side of the road. My daughter is a doctor, so I brought young Miss Yuan home to treat her. Young Miss Yuan has already woken up and is currently being treated in her room. Would Grand Secretary Yuan please wait for a moment?" Although Grand Secretary Yuan was worried about his granddaughter's safety, he did not act rudely. He once again cupped his hands and bowed. "Many thanks to Madame Gu for saving my life." Grand Secretary Yuan did not know that his granddaughter already knew someone from Marquis Ding and Manor. He only thought that his granddaughter had woken up and reported her identity. Only then did this family know to go to the manor to inform him. "Madam, son-in-law's books have been dried." Yu Ye walked over from the rear courtyard while holding a large stack of books. Yao Shi said, "Let me see." "Yes." Yu Ye placed the dried books on the wooden table between Yao Shi and Grand Secretary Yuan. She had only recently discovered that Xiao Lulang had too many books. Some of the books that she did not read often had become moist. Taking advantage of the hot weather these past few days, she took them out to dry. "This book needs to be dried a bit more." Yao Shi handed a book that was still slightly moist to Yu Ye. "All right, there's still a bit of sunlight. I'll take it to dry." Yu Ye took the book and went to the rear courtyard. Grand Secretary Yuan was not in the mood to pry, but he was bored sitting and inadvertently glanced over. If he did not glance, he would not know. But once he did, he was shocked. How could a small family's home have a history book from the previous dynasty? The attraction of books to Grand Secretary Yuan was equivalent to the attraction of weapons to the old marquis. That was something that could not be moved once they saw it. Grand Secretary Yuan's eyes were fixed on the book. Yao Shi sensed his gaze and asked, "Does Grand Secretary Yuan want to take a look?" "Is it convenient?" Grand Secretary Yuan asked. "It's just a few books. There's nothing inconvenient about it," Yao Shi said. Feng Lin and the others often came to borrow books from Xiao Lulang. The scholars in the alley would also come to borrow books. Xiao Lulang was always extremely generous. At first, Yao Shi would inform him, but later on, he would let Yao Shi make the decision herself. Xiao Lulang trusted and respected Yao Shi. Of course, respect was mutual. Yao Shi also cherished Xiao Liulong's things greatly. Grand Secretary Yuan was someone who cherished books. Grand Secretary Yuan picked up the book on the table and began to flip through it. Just now, he had only caught a glimpse, but now that he carefully flipped through it, he felt even more stunned. This was especially the case when he saw an ancient book related to the previous dynasty's second emperor, Wan Huizong. Inside, a large half of the Ode to Northern Yen was recorded. This book was missing a corner, and the missing part was filled in by a letter. On it was recorded the source of the excerpts from various great ancient books, history books, and other documents. The handwriting was still quite new, looking like it was written less than a year ago. In other words, a portion of this ode to Northern Yen had indeed been lost, but it had been filled in through countless documents. Grand Secretary Yuan knew that it would be very difficult for him to do this. Wait, why would the source of Ode to Northern Yen be here? He remembered that there was also a history book in the library that mentioned Ode to Northern Yen. It was filled in by Royal Prince N. Could it be that this family had some kind of relationship with Royal Prince N? "May I ask, where did this book come from?" Yao Shi smiled. "This is my son-in-law's book. I am not sure where it came from either. Perhaps it was a gift from his great-uncle, or perhaps it was bought from the study room." "How could the study room have bought it?" "This was clearly the only copy. Who filled in the second half of this ode to Northern Yen? Grand Secretary Yuan pointed at the bookmark and asked. Yao Shi looked at it and said, "This is my son-in-law's handwriting. Has this book ever been lent to anyone else?" Grand Secretary Yuan asked. "Is it this book?" "No." Yao Shi shook her head. If it had been lent out, it wouldn't have been buried at the bottom of the chest and damp. Just as Grand Secretary Yuan wanted to ask who Madame Gu's son-in-law was, the little Taoist nun came out from the room. She had jumped down from the second floor and sprained her left foot. She was supported by Gu Jiao as she limped. Although Gu Jiao's face was damaged, Grand Secretary Yuan did not judge people based on their appearance. He also did not look down on Gu Jiao's status like other people did when they looked at female doctors. He solemnly thanked Gu Jiao and paid 5 taels of silver for the consultation fee. Only then did he bring his granddaughter back. After the two left, a tall and sturdy figure walked out of the study. He arrived in front of Yao Shi and clasped his hands in greeting. "Many thanks, madam. I didn't do anything. However, do you really not plan on letting Grand Secretary Yuan know that you saved his granddaughter?" Yao Shi did not even leave the house today. How could she have run into the injured young Miss Yuan? It was Gu Chongqing who had brought her back. Yao Shi looked at him and said, "My meaning is that you aren't young anymore, and you've saved young Miss Yuan twice. Even I feel that this is a rare type of fate. If you agree, I will personally come to propose marriage on your behalf." For Yao Shi to be able to say that she would propose marriage on behalf of Gu Chongqing, it could be seen that her ill feelings towards him had already been reduced by quite a bit. Perhaps she still had no way of being a mother who doted on him, but she could be a stepmother who did not lose her status. "Jiao Jiao, what do you think?" Yao Shi looked towards her daughter, trying to pull her daughter into her camp. "Gu Jiao. How could urging someone to marry be the same thing as urging someone to marry?" Gu Jiao seriously thought for a bit. Young Miss Yuan is quite good. I like her, but the most important thing is that you like her." As she spoke, she looked towards Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing took a deep breath and slowly said, "I do not want to get married." He did not have any thoughts of getting married. His grandfather and grandmother appeared to be united, but were actually divided. His father and mother also did not have any feelings for each other. If he wanted to get married like them, then he would rather not marry for the rest of his life. Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. "I couldn't tell that you were a person who did not believe in marriage." Digression. It's the end of the month. Those who still have monthly votes, please vote. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111769044. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 327. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all here. Gu Chongqing returned to Marquis Ding and Manor. Gu Chengfeng and Gu Chenglin had gone to the back of the mountain to pick fruit. He returned to his own room. He sat down by the bed. Without any outsiders, his unchanging ice face finally had a trace of expression. He knitted his eyebrows and took off his clothes. His neck, shoulders, and even the back of his hands and wrists were all covered in shocking scratches. There were even some places that had beads of blood. The beads of blood had dried and stuck to his clothes. When he peeled them off, the pain made him gasp. "Heir." The manservant carried the clothes that had just been taken from the clothesline and entered. He immediately saw Gu Chongqing's neck covered in scratches. He was startled and asked, "Which little hoof did this?" Gu Chongqing's eyes turned cold. He quickly pulled up the clothes. "Don't you know how to knock before coming in?" The manservant embarrassedly said, "This little one did not know that you had returned. This little one was just tidying up the room and went out to take in the clothes. Who would have thought that heir would return? Speaking of which, heir, what is with the injuries on your body? Which girl did this? Is it from outside the manor or from our manor?" He did not dare say little hoof again. "It has nothing to do with you." Gu Chongqing calmly stood up and hung the sword at his waist on the rack. "Oh." The manservant came to the bedside and folded the clothes one by one. The ones that did not need to be folded were hung up in the cabinet. "Why is it a woman?" Gu Chongqing suddenly spoke. The manservant said, "Does this even need to be said? It's obvious that it makes people scratch. Which man has fingernails?" Gu Chongqing's eyes moved. "Don't speak nonsense." The manservant muttered, "If heir does not allow this little one to speak, then this little one will not speak." Gu Chongqing stood in front of the sword rack. The places where he had been scratched were aching. It was different from the sharp and direct pain of a sword wound. This kind of pain was strange and unfamiliar. Gu Chongqing closed his eyes as the image of her in the carriage flashed through his mind. The servant's eyes flashed as he asked cautiously, "But heir, why did you suddenly think it through?" Gu Chongqing was puzzled. "What do you mean? Why did you suddenly think it through?" The manservant smiled embarrassedly. "I won't hide it from you. You haven't been close to women all these years. You don't even have a maid in your courtyard, and you don't want to talk about marriage. We are all guessing. Do you like men?" Gu Chongqing's face darkened. "Get out." The servant shuddered and left resentfully. Then, he went to inform the old Duke and old Madame Gu that his heir was enlightened. His heir touched a woman. After several hours of treatment, Royal Prince An's injuries finally stabilized at night. After watching him drink his medicine, the manor doctor retreated. Imperial Tutor Zhuang came to Royal Prince An's room. His expression was not very good. The two did not speak and the atmosphere was heavy. Imperial Tutor Zhuang said, "I'll ask you one last time. Did you really do it?" Royal Prince An said, "It was me." No matter how many times grandfather asks, the answer will be the same. Imperial Tutor Zhuang hated iron for not becoming steel. This grandson was his most important junior. He had placed the hopes of the Zhuang family's prosperity for the next 100 years on him. However, he destroyed his own future and made such a mistake. He suppressed his anger and said in a heavy voice, "The girl you took advantage of today is not some random girl from a small family on the streets. She can't be dismissed with a sum of money or a bit of power. That is the daughter of the Marquis of Ding and Fu. Even if she is an adopted daughter, she is still on the family tree. Not to mention, the old Marquis of Ding An and Gu Chongqing are both highly regarded by the Emperor. You can't not acknowledge this debt. You need to give her a status." Royal Prince An weakly lay on the bed. His heart was like dead ashes as he said, "As grandfather arranges." Either way, it wasn't her. What difference did it make if he married Miss Yuan or Miss Gu? The next day, Imperial Tutor Zhuang sent a housekeeper to the Marquis of Ding and Fu to explain his intentions to the old Marquis and old Madame Gu. "My master has said that he is willing to let the royal prince take Miss Gu as a secondary princess." Once these words were said, old Madame Gu was happy. With the Marquis of Ding and Fu's position in the capital, to be able to marry into the Zhuang family was them climbing up the social ladder. Even if it was the position of secondary princess, it would not be a disgrace to Gu Jinyu. The old Marquis's face sank. "This is your Zhuang family's Ding and Fu's explanation." "Humph. You are bullying the Marquis of Ding and Fu because they no longer have the Gu family army and no military power. So you can humiliate them as you wish." The housekeeper faintly smiled. "What is old Marquis Gu saying?" "The imperial tutor does not have any intentions of disrespecting the Marquis of Ding and Fu. It's just that the news in the capital has already spread. This Miss Gu is not the flesh and blood of Marquis Gu and Marquis Madam. She was brought into the Marquis Fu by mistake. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but my family's young master was personally conferred the title of Royal Prince by the Emperor. He was a hostage in the country of Chen for 10 years on behalf of the Crown Prince and made great contributions to the country of Zhao. How could his official wife be someone that a peasant girl from the countryside could hold the position? Not to mention that not long ago, Miss Gu caused a great disaster. I heard that Miss Gu first falsely claimed the credit for the bellows and then stole the credit for the mortar. Furthermore, she secretly modified the bellows, harming countless craftsmen from the Ministry of Works and causing great losses to the Ministry of Works. To say something disgraceful, Miss Gu and the Marquis of Ding and Fu's heir are not related by blood. Then, is old Marquis willing to allow the heir to take a woman with Miss Gu's character as his official wife? How could that wicked girl be worthy of Chongqing? Old Madame Gu could not hold back her anger as she opened her mouth. Just as she finished speaking, she received an icy gaze from the old Marquis. She realized that she had said the wrong thing. Her eyes flashed and she picked up her teacup to drink tea. The housekeeper knew that he had already won the situation and did not say anything else. He cupped his hands in greeting. If old Marquis and old Madam do not have any objections to this marriage, then this one will return to report to the imperial tutor. Old Madame Gu opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she was instantly silenced by the old Marquis's icy gaze. The housekeeper proudly swaggered off. In reality, he was still not very happy. Secondary consort? Was Gu Jinyu, that woman with a terrible reputation, worthy? She had gotten off lightly. Old Master. Old Madame Gu realized that her slip of the tongue had caused them to lose the situation. At this moment, she did not dare to complain and only said, "Actually, that child Jinyu is still considerate. Although she has made many mistakes, she has already turned over a new leaf. She even went to Ciu Manor a few days ago. With old master and imperial concubine Shu supporting her, I think that even if she is a secondary consort, the Zhuang family will not mistreat her." But the old Marquis could not accept the status of a secondary consort. He had never thought of using his own child to climb up the social ladder, but he had a principle. The Gu family's daughter would rather marry a commoner as a wife than marry into a noble family as a concubine. A secondary consort sounded more noble than a concubine, but she was not the main wife after all. The old Marquis went to Gu Jinyu's courtyard. Gu Jinyu was recuperating in her room. Her face was pale and she looked haggard. The old Marquis asked her, "Let me ask you, if I can suppress this matter, are you willing to marry someone else?" Gu Jinyu knelt down in front of the old Marquis and said with reddened eyes, "Jinyu and the Duke have already had physical contact. How can I still have the face to marry someone else? If the Zhuang family does not admit it, Jinyu can go to the nunnery and become a nun." The old Marquis frowned and sighed. No matter how much he did not dote on her, he would not let anyone trample on the reputation of the Marquis's family. Moreover, this matter was the Zhuang family's fault. They had bullied her but did not want to take responsibility. Instead, they forced the Gu family's daughter to become a nun in the nunnery. The old Marquis immediately went to the palace, but was told that the emperor had left with eunuch He. "When will His Majesty return?" the old Marquis asked Eunuch Wei at the entrance of the palace. Eunuch Wei said, "This servant is not sure. Does the old Marquis have an urgent matter to discuss with His Majesty?" It was indeed urgent. The old Marquis was worried that Grand Tutor Zhuang would inform Empress Dowager Zhuang in advance and have her issue an imperial edict to make Gu Jinyu a secondary consort. Then it would be too late to say anything. The old Marquis said, "There is indeed an urgent matter." "Ah." Eunuch Wei thought for a moment and said, "This servant cannot tell you where His Majesty is. If the old Marquis trusts this servant is willing to convey the message on behalf of the old Marquis." This was the only way. The old Marquis cupped his hands. "Thank you for your trouble, Eunuch Wei." 2 hours later, a carriage stopped outside the nunnery. Eunuch Wei walked down from the carriage. The emperor was feeding concubine Jing medicine in the meditation room. Concubine Jing sat at the head of the bed, covered with a thin layer of mattress. "I'll do it myself," she said. "It's not a serious illness. It's just a cold. Why did your majesty have to come?" The emperor frowned. "If I hadn't arranged for people to protect Mother in secret, I wouldn't have known that she was ill. Mother used to fool me like this in the past. She hid everything from me." Concubine Jing smiled faintly. "People will always have this and that when they get older. How can they be the same as when they were young? Your Majesty is the ruler of a country and has many affairs to attend to every day. There's no need to mobilize so many people for such a small matter." The emperor snorted. "Says who? I see that the Empress Dowager's health is very good. She's even more robust than before." Concubine Jing was startled. She hadn't expected the emperor to suddenly mention the Empress Dowager. She smiled. "It's a blessing for Zhao Nation that the Empress Dowager is healthy. Your Majesty has been working hard these past few years, and the Empress Dowager has shared much of your Majesty's burden." The emperor snorted. "Mother, you don't have to speak for her." Concubine Jing smiled. "I'm not speaking for her. We entered the palace together and have known each other for so many years. How can I not know her personality? She has a sharp tongue and is unforgiving. Her heart is with your Majesty." The emperor said coldly, "If she really is with me, she should hand over the power of the court and live out her life peacefully in Rancho Palace." All right, I won't say any more. The medicine is getting cold." Concubine Jing picked up the bowl and began drinking. The emperor watched over her quietly. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the wooden hairpin on the old concubine's head. He frowned slightly. "Mother may be a vegetarian and pray to Buddha, but her life is too simple. She doesn't even have a decent hairpin. Unlike the Empress Dowager, who wears a high hat and wide belt and is surrounded by pearls and jade. She's extremely extravagant." Concubine Jing opened her mouth, but stopped in the end. She continued drinking the medicine. The emperor glanced at the bare table and asked Nanny Kai, who was waiting on the side, "Are there no candied fruits in the room?" Nanny Kai smiled awkwardly. "Grand Imperial Concubine doesn't eat that." The emperor snorted. "Mother is too hard-working. There are at least 10 types of candied fruits in Rancho Palace." Concubine Jing's eyelashes trembled. She finished the medicine in one breath and handed the empty bowl to Nanny Kai. She then wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief and said in amusement, "Your Majesty, you keep mentioning the Empress Dowager today." The emperor choked. "Did I?" "Yes." Concubine Jing looked at him with a smile. The emperor snorted. "That's because she went too far. I'm so angry that my head hurts. I only hope to take away her real power as soon as possible. That way, I can take Mother back to the palace with peace of mind." "You..." Concubine Jing shook her head helplessly. "Your Majesty, Eunuch Wei is here." A young eunuch entered the room to report. The emperor asked, "What is he here for?" Concubine Jing said, "Let's go take a look. It must be something important." The emperor returned after half an hour with a serious expression. "What is it, Your Majesty?" Concubine Jing sat on the bed and asked. The emperor had always told Concubine Jing everything he knew. He sighed and said, "Gu Chao came to ask for an imperial edict. He wants me to appoint a marriage between his granddaughter and royal prince," and Concubine Jing was startled. "Old Marquis Dingan? Why would he marry into the Zhuang family?" The two families were loyal to different camps. Although they weren't at odds with each other, the marriage wasn't their first choice. The emperor said helplessly, "Royal prince and took advantage of Miss Gu, but he didn't want to give her the position of princess consort. Gu Chao isn't after fame or power, but he couldn't take it lying down. He felt that the Zhuang family had gone too far and didn't apologize at all." Concubine Jing was silent for a while. "I've heard of Royal Prince N, but I didn't expect him to do something like this." The emperor said, "To be honest, I'm surprised as well." Concubine Jing looked at his expression and asked, Your Majesty doesn't agree to this marriage? The Emperor nodded. To be honest, Mother, I'm a bit hesitant. Concubine Jing asked gently, Is Your Majesty worried that the marriage will be disadvantageous to Your Majesty? The Emperor shook his head. No, Gu Chao isn't that kind of person. Besides, Gu Jinyu isn't Gu Chao's biological granddaughter. She's just a peasant girl who was brought home by mistake. The Emperor believed that the old Marquis wouldn't change his position for her. Concubine Jing thought for a while. Then, Your Majesty is worried that the Empress Dowager won't agree? The Emperor's expression turned cold at the mention of the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager doesn't know about this, and I don't intend to ask for her opinion. There would be no room for negotiation if she asked. Either they didn't do it, or they had to seize the opportunity. Then what is Your Majesty worried about? Concubine Jing asked. The Emperor hesitated for a while, but still said, That girl got into trouble before, so her reputation isn't good. Most importantly, she stole the credit of the young divine doctor. The Emperor couldn't stand it, so he didn't want to praise Gu Jinyu. Concubine Jing didn't ask what kind of trouble she'd gotten into. She paused, then asked with a smile, Has she changed? The Emperor grunted. I heard that she's turned over a new leaf. She even went to Ci Yozhuang behind her family's back and took care of the children there without complaint. She even fainted from exhaustion. Concubine Jing smiled warmly. Your Majesty, it's great to know one's mistakes and mend them. Besides, the old Marquis of Ding, and has worked hard and performed a great service. He didn't hesitate to dismiss the Gu army and bear the infamy. If Your Majesty can't even agree to such a small request, it'll be too disappointing for the old Marquis. The Emperor thought about it carefully. The old Marquis had indeed never asked him for anything. It would be a bit unkind of him to turn him down when he finally opened his mouth. Concubine Jing continued, Speaking of which, the old Marquis saved my life back then. There was such a thing. The Emperor looked at Concubine Jing in astonishment. Concubine Jing lowered her head and smiled self-deprecatingly. That was before I entered the palace. I went to the temple to burn incense and encountered mounted bandits on my way back. Fortunately, the old Marquis helped me chase them away. Otherwise, I might have lost my life in the wilderness. The Emperor said in a daze, I've never heard Mother mention it. Concubine Jing looked at him with a smile. At that time, I was selected as a concubine and wasn't allowed to leave the residence. I snuck out. It's all because I was young and naughty. The Emperor was enlightened. I see. He pondered for a moment, then said, I'll give the old Marquis request some thought. Concubine Jing nodded with a smile. The Emperor and Concubine Jing chatted for a while before Eunuch he came in and urged, Your Majesty, it's time to return to the palace. Concubine Jing looked at the dark sky, a trace of reluctance flashing through her eyes. She patted the Emperor's hand. Your Majesty, let's return to the palace. The Emperor sighed and said to Eunuch he, Where's the safety talisman I asked you to ask for? Eunuch he quickly took out a brocade box from his sleeve and handed it to the Emperor. I got it. It was blessed by Abbot Liaoyun. Concubine Jing looked at the safety talisman that seemed to emit endless Buddhist aura. This is... Oh, the Emperor said. It's for the Empress Dowager. Concubine Jing was startled. Eunuch Wei smiled. The Empress Dowager didn't sleep a night because she took care of Your Majesty and fell ill from exhaustion. Concubine Jing smiled. It's rare for you and your son to let bygones be bygones. The Emperor looked at Concubine Jing and said, Mother is my mother. She's only the Empress Dowager. This safety talisman is a gift from the monarch to the Empress Dowager, not a gift from the son. Moreover, I can't hide my whereabouts from her. Instead of letting her make trouble for Mother, it's better for me to tell her that I'm here to ask for a safety talisman for her and to visit Mother. Concubine Jing smiled helplessly. The Empress Dowager won't do anything to me. Your Majesty is overthinking it. Digression. The next chapter will be released in the first half of next month. It'll be released soon. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428266/1117416666. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.